Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another day, another week of 30 NSG. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the Todd Howard interview. We're actually going to watch, I believe, the Todd Howard interview if they've already posted it. I think they have. It's from Kind of Funny Games. They said they were posting it at 9 o'clock this morning, so we should take a look at that. Other than that, we're also going to talk about Xbox Gamepass raising prices, and we're also going to talk about a delay of Immortals of Aveum. So that's what's on the docket today. Also, a bonus one, actually, we're going to be talking about the PlayStation, how Jim Ryan said he's not going to give up the plans for the PlayStation 6 to Activision to get early access to make a game for it. So we'll go over that article and talk about that in just a second. What's going on, chat? Appreciate you guys coming out and hanging out with us in the mornings here. We do these Monday through Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, my son's fine, Travis. He just got a little injured on his leg. Took care of it, and then I had to take care of some stuff real quick outside because his injury got into the way of my other duties before I have to start stream. So everything's good. What happened to this kid? He just got injured. He injured himself. Dad had to take care of him for the obviously men and women take care of kids differently. So there's no babying or anything like that with when a kid gets hurt and mom's around, they kind of like and then when dad's around, they're just like, I'm injured type of stuff. So he bruised his leg, took a chunk of skin off. Not sure how he did it. He says he doesn't know how he did it. So it is what it is. So a little bit of a, spray some Windex on it. You know what I mean? No, not really. But you get that joke. You get the joke. Right, with dad, you get down to business, right? So, yeah, put some alcohol swipe on it, get out the injury, and he's back playing some Minecraft Legends right now on his new laptop. 15 or 20 now for Game Pass. I don't think it's that much. I think they're like raising it like $1. Exactly. There was a little blood. But he's okay. Like I said, he's back already playing some Minecraft Legends. Let me see if I can find this interview. Kind of Funny Games. Because they said they're going to post it this morning. There we go. Todd Howard, your questions, Kind of Funny Games. 49 minutes long. So let's get to it. Yeah, his birthday's in August, and we decided because he's part of this we signed him up for a summer camp about Minecraft.
To another episode of the
So because he's in this Minecraft camp and he's doing Java now, Minecraft Java, and he's learning how to mod and code inside the game, we decided to get him a low grade laptop. We got him a Lenovo i5. I forget what the specs are, but it's good enough for him. It's under $500, and it's good enough for him to do what he has to do. And then we also said it would be okay because he's starting 3rd grade. He's gonna have starting more homework and whatnot, and using the computer more. So we decided to purchase him a laptop.
Kind of Funny Xcast, your home for all things Xbox here at Kind of Funny. Of course, I'm one of your hosts, Snowbike Mike, and today I am joined by my 2 gaming dads
can you hear it okay?
At it again, and one incredible special guest, of course, from Bethesda Game Studios. It's Todd Howard in the building. Todd, I'll start with you because you're our guest. How are you today?
Over under if Todd says it just
fantastic.
works.
Thanks for having me. I've met you
great,
guys
Dave.
each before, and just to let you know,
That'd be
I am
fantastic.
actually such a huge fan of what you guys do. I watch it all the time and love the conversations you have.
Don't ass kiss,
be
Todd.
More excited actually
one likes to kiss
be
ass.
here with you all today.
Thanks, Todd. And, it was really special to get to meet you over the summer, and I'm sure everybody here has their own very special story, but it is awesome to make a memory here on the Kind of Funny XCast with you. So thank you for your time and hanging out with us. Of course, guys, my gaming dads, I want to kick it off with you two and Todd because we just celebrated Father's Day. And I want to give a big shout out to my gaming dads out there because, of course, all those gaming dads around the globe, you're incredible. We want to celebrate you this week. And I want to start off with you two. And then, Todd, what is one of your favorite gaming dad moments that you've gotten to share with your kids? Because I'm sure you've had some memorable ones. Gary, I'll start with you. Give me a good one.
The first one that popped into my head, and I have a clip of it, and it genuinely was a proud dad moment. The first time my daughter legitimately
he's in the
won a crown
early
in
stages,
Fall Guys
Jesse.
all on her own for the first time. That was amazing. That was
a
incredible to
special
see. And she had come so close a couple
You
of
gotta-
times.
you gotta
like
start
last
somewhere.
second tail grab in Royal Fumble, and I was devastated for her when she finally got one. Like I made sure that I clipped it. It was just like a proud dad moment.
Paris Lily, tell me a proud dad moment that you had gaming side.
Mine is so easy. It's my son when he was 9 years old. He might have been 10, but 9 or 10 years old. 2015 King's Fall raid, Destiny. He didn't have to carry him. We ran through the whole thing. He did it all on his own. It was just a
That's cool.
fantastic moment.
I like
to be
that
able
moment.
To do that, to be able to share that with them. Actually, I'll give you another one from
You think they
Destiny.
have some
My son and
softballs
I
for Todd?
also
Oh, for
doing
sure.
trials, getting to
For
the
sure.
lighthouse together. That's something I'll never forget.
This is
Great
like the
gaming
new
moment.
version of like when you take the training wheels off the kid's
Yeah.
bike and they can do it by themselves. It's the new video game age of that.
That's a special one.
Yeah.
Of course, Todd, you're a dad out there. Do you have some proud gaming dad moments? I mean, you got to have a special one where you like point at the TV and go, I made that with my team, right? Like, is there moments like that?
It took me a long time to get my kids to play my games, actually. But some of my fondest memories gaming with my kids has really been Minecraft. You know, for a long time, for a decade, we always come back to it, and it's just like a world that we can all build.
My
and play
hit,
in
my
together,
actual just
and,
regular
it-
attack
it's really,
water
really amazing.
brings back my spirit.
That's pretty rad. I love that shared world of Minecraft where you can always
So,
go
like, if I
back,
hit 2
leave
times, it
for a
brings up my
couple of months,
spirit and I
come back
lightning.
whenever you want to, and just keep.
My
creating
kid was
yourself.
obsessed with Minecraft for a while because every kid goes through that phase, right? Every kid's into Minecraft at one point or
My
another. I
daughter.
never really was, so I never connected with her over Minecraft proper. But we've talked a lot on the show before about what a great way to bring families together. Something like Minecraft Dungeons is, right? Because like she was into it because she liked the world, but also it's basically Diablo, right? So that was another proud dad moment for me. The first time we got back from a quest and she's back in town, like, this +5 on these new trousers that I just got, and I'm like, this is video games. Like you're learning. This
Boss,
is
if
the
you ever
language of
have a
video games, and
son,
seeing her do that for the
Like, if
first
you have
time,
children and they get into Minecraft,
preparing
you'll
different
understand
pieces of
why
gear
it's a
and what she
really,
wanted to
really
put in
actually a
each
really
armor
good game.
slot. I was like,
It
she's a
teaches so
gamer
many
now. It was just
things.
brilliant. I loved it.
I love you guys sharing your proud dad gamer moments. Of course, shout out to all the dads out there that watch and listen to the show. Thank you for your support. And to everybody else out there, I can't wait
You're
to
like,
share
God,
a great
no.
interview with you because we get to sit down with Todd Howard himself, talk all things Starfield, coming hot off of that Starfield Direct, and so much more about his incredible career in gaming. But before that, I got to remind you that this is the Kind of Funny XCast. We post each and every Thursday at 6 a.m. West Coast, Best Coast time on YouTube.com/KindOfFunnyGames.
Wait a minute, we can-
RoosterTeeth.com.
this is
and of course,
housekeeping. We don't need
Penny
to-
in
There we go.
awe.
We
It
can
was
skip that.
truly an amazing moment and something that when we left that going, man, we really got to go 45 minutes in depth with your team looking at this awesome brand new game. And you guys absolutely crushed it. So congratulations to you guys. That was really, really cool. But I want to talk about how do you build something like that with a direct? I know your games are so big and there's so much to do, and it's probably easy to talk about that. But how do you refine that into a tight 45 minutes where we are captured, we aren't lingering on something too long, and maybe you cut things out? What is that process like for you and the team?
You know, it takes a lot of time. We've been fortunate enough to be able to give a lot of cool demos over the years going back. Fallout 4 was always a highlight for
I'm gonna pause this for a second. Can someone at Bethesda help Todd? Like, why are we using the camera microphone? Like, I think Bethesda could like buy a microphone for him to use. Am I right? Am I right? Like, seriously. Like, what's the deal with these interviews with people? Like, all it takes, like the headset right behind him, like he could put that on and he could talk into the headset microphone. Like something better than an echoey room. Anyway, I
us
digress.
to do that. We did a decent-sized Starfield demo last year at, I'll say, E3, the Xbox showcase. And I think at that time, maybe it was 12, 13 minutes for Starfield at the end. That had been the longest demo that Xbox had shown. and got a great response. Going into it this year, we knew, hey, we want to give everybody a
That's what I'm
really
saying.
deep dive look at the game and what's the best way to do that. And so we're really fortunate, I think, to have that opportunity to do that kind of following the Xbox showcase with Starfield Direct.
Well, so, guys, I really appreciate you coming out and interviewing me here in the room. It's really fantastic. Yeah, we had a really good time with Starfield. It's a fantastic opportunity to show you what we have here.
It's like, what are we doing?
And the response really was incredible. Hearing so many people and the feedback, everybody kind of rooting for us and loving what we've shown. You never know, right? We're heads down here in the studio, and it had been a while since we had really come out with that much stuff. You never know how people are going to react. It's a new IP. It's incredibly ambitious. We're taking a lot of risks.
It's really hard to.
I'm really happy with the
hear him.
response. It's a lot of fuel to us here. I will say the thing that actually makes me most proud of it is by doing it in that format, we could highlight a lot of people on the team that fans don't know or haven't seen before. And look, there are hundreds more that we couldn't show in it, and sort of their passion for the project.
I just have to say, like, the production team must be cringing right now. They're just like, yes, it's great. Can you guys, they're probably freaking out right now because they're like, we all have professional microphones. This is a $1 billion company, and they got paid what, $7.2 billion ZeniMax to get a part of Microsoft, and they can't afford a microphone for Todd for an interview. Borrow one? Can you borrow one?
They have all put so much into this game, and we just hope people love it as much as we do.
So, Todd, first and foremost, thank you for coming on the show. I kind of want to have, I've been really thinking about, like, what's the first question I'm going to ask Todd? And I'll take it from the direct, just how I felt in the moment.
Is it going to work, Todd?
It was an incredible presentation.
That would be the greatest question, Mike. My first question I want to ask, is it going to work?
And the thing that I saw in that direct, because there's just so much information. There was just such a data dump that you had of things that Starfield is going to be able to do. But the kind of fun thing that I want to ask you, which can lead into a bigger discussion, is at one point, you were basically a space pirate. You could board a ship, you could take the ship, you could take everything you want on there, all the sandwiches, all those fun things. But
the problem, Water, is they didn't even buy a microphone.
It kind of leads into, outside of the main story, the discovery, the exploration that you're going to be able to do in Starfield. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think if you look at all of our games, that kind of feeling is what we want, where you can look at the scope of the game and the sort of palette of things and menu of things you could do, and then say, what if? And then I'm going to go do these things. And I think that idea of being a space pirate, there's a whole faction for it, by the way, with the Crimson Fleet, or being a smuggler, or having contraband and shielded cargo, or taking over things. Those are all things that we think about as well, and we want to find the best ways to enable that while it not feeling separate, while it fitting in part of the game itself. You see that in the video, I think, when you ride.
You know, it'd be great if Todd this would make. I would love this if he did this, right? Before he talked, if he said, just pre-warning, this camera is in 60 frames per second. That would have been hilarious. Would have been hilarious.
Arrive at Jemison, where they actually do a contraband scan that you pass in that case. So a lot of really cool systems, and we do so many of them. I think what we really work on is how do all those systems come together and collide and create some really, really cool moments.
It also would have been a lie.
The players, yourselves, have that agency to go really do what you want to do in the game.
Yeah,
I do like that in Bethesda games. Fallout 3, 4, Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, all those games. I love the fact that when you go into a game like this, your expectations, or I shouldn't say your expectations, your imagination goes wild. Like the thing that he said the other day about fighting guys on the ground and going into space, or going into the ship and the ship taking off and going into space. That's pretty cool. Like that alone, I understand that's the driving factor of why people like Bethesda games. They can literally take their time. It's not a sprint to like beat their games. It's more of an adventure, right? It's more of a marathon as you go through. And I think that's something that's different because of the story-driven aspects of those games and how wide open they are.
There's going to be a lot to do in this game, and I'm looking forward to that, Todd. Really exciting stuff. You talk about all of the different systems at play and how big this is and the player freedom. I do want to jump in right away because we got over 1,000 community questions written in. They were very excited that you're going to be on this show, and people really wanted to talk with you about some of this stuff.
Of
course, a big one that Xbox has been pushing on the XCast side of things is accessibility. And of course, you and your team have been doing this for many of years. You've worked on these settings. Xbox, it's a big drive for them right now, is the accessibility program and making sure everyone can play around the globe. You talk about players first. What is it like creating a game that's so big and has so many systems and also mixing in accessibility settings? Is there something that stands out to you?
We might only have time for this interview today. I'll be honest with you. We might only have time for this interview. I might drop the other two things that we're going to talk about. We'll see.
This time around.
Well, first, I think Xbox has done an incredible job there with everything they've done with accessibility and their controller in particular. You asked one thing really leaning in on with this game is having a large font mode, which really is important in an RPG where there's a lot of stuff to read. So it comes into play with obviously for accessibility, but also various monitor sizes. I'm noticing that that's really helpful when I play. There's a lot more handheld devices coming out where you can stream these games or sometimes even play them natively, and it really helps us.
Is that a fax machine back here? A fax machine? The hell is that? Looks like a keyboard, something. I don't know what that is.
There as well, so that's one in particular that we're leaning in on.
That's sweet. That's sweet. And you talk about handheld. Can you share with us, is it Steam Deck compatible? Is that something you focused on, or is that something we share later down on the road?
We'll talk about that later down the road. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I missed what he said there.
Can you share with us, is it Steam Deck compatible? Is that something you focused on, or is that something we share later down on the road?
We'll talk about that later down the road. Yeah.
You could see it on his face when he's asking the question. Watch. Look at Todd's face when he's asking the question.
So that's one in particular that we're leaning in on.
That's sweet. That's sweet. And you talk about handheld. Can you share with us, is it Steam Deck compatible? Is that something you focused on, or is that something we share later down on the road?
We'll talk about that.
You see the hidden smile in his face, right? You see the hidden smile on his face?
The road. Yeah.
All right. Let's jump back into the fun, though, because there's
the funny part is the Steam Deck will be 60 frames per second.
a lot of cool stuff, Gary. And I want to get into being a space pirate, but I want to talk about the first steps, creating the character. You guys have now pushed backgrounds and traits into the fold of things. And, of course, we've had the stars before in Elder Scrolls. What is it like now putting traits and backgrounds? What are some of your favorites, and what kind of uniqueness did you be able to bring into that?
Yeah, I think for us, we've done a number of games, obviously, over the decades.
Boss, I think 60 frames per second is later on down the road, but I'm talking like later on down the road. Like they just put 60 frames for Fallout 76 like 2 days ago, and it's been out for 4 years.
Have various character systems, and I think we've learned a lot in terms of how does it feel when you start a game? What are those first choices?
The audio is choppy for you guys? My audio or their audio? I don't hear the choppiness on... Hold on.
Like before you understand what the actual rules of the game are, that's always a trick to get right. And then how much depth does it have if you've playing for 20 hours or 50 hours or 100 hours or 500 hours? And so I think we've hit a...
I think that's just the microphone that he's talking through the camera. There's no hiccuping unless you're talking about when I pause it. It's yours. It's cutting out as soon as the last word is said by anyone, including yourself. Really? I don't hear that problem.
Real sweet spot with Starfield with giving you that.
Let me rewind because I missed what he was talking about.
I think for us, we've done a number of games, obviously, over the decades that have various character systems. And I think we've learned a lot in terms of how does it feel when you start a game? What are those first choices like before you understand what the actual rules of the game are? That's always a trick to get right. And then how much depth does it have if you've playing for 20 hours or 50 hours or 100 hours or 500 hours? And so I think
Yeah,
we've
it's got to
hit
be
a
your
real sweet spot.
it's got to be
with
your guys' end.
Starfield
It's got to
that's
be
giving
YouTube.
you that flavor right out of the gate, where you are going to pick some starting skills with your background, but that also has flavor. People want to role play. They don't want to just see it as a list of numbers. You know, I'm a chef. Okay, what kind of chef do? How does that factor into dialogue or other choices in the game? And then, so that's the backgrounds and the traits. It's a little bit of a original fallback, throwback to that, to Fallout, excuse me, and then say these are optional. They come with positives, they come with negatives, and you saw some of that in the
I do
direct.
like
with
what he's
the
saying.
Adoring Fan and some other ones. The Parents is a really, really great one that we all love. So it lets you, if you're going to start over, even play the game in a different way.
See, I like the fact that, for instance, one of the traits is business owner, right? And you can start like your own business. Again, what we were talking about before, like what's so cool about Bethesda games like Skyrim and Fallout is that you can do your own type of thing. Like I'm gonna be like fantasizing that I'm Han Solo, Captain Kirk, owning my own ship, going through the galaxy, trying to get materials and trading with people, type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like I like certain things like that, and I think it's cool that in this game there's different traits and there's positives and negatives, so you try different things. That's a cool. And to touch on what you're saying, Travis, like they're gonna hone in on the 20 hours. Let's talk about that for a second. 20 hours of content. Let's just say it's 20 hours, and after 20 hours, the game just completely, utterly shits itself. Okay? Is the price of $70 worth 20 hours of your time for like rich story content with dialogue and cutscenes and stuff like that? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the price for your value of money? Now, obviously, it's different for everybody. Someone might get an open world game, pay $70, and they're like, yeah, this is boring and it's not worth the time. Where other people are like, this is well worth the money. You know what I mean? So I think that's different for everybody. But $70 for 20 hours, like I have no regrets buying Gotham Knights, even though it wasn't 60 frames per second for the story content. And the story content was like, I think about 11, 12 hours. I don't have no regrets buying Marvel's Avengers and playing that for 15 hours for the story. Like, to me, those alone, if I go up buy a book and I read a book, and books are expensive, right? Unless you get them on sale. If you get a brand new book, they're anywhere between $20, $50, all depending on what you're getting. And you can read those in 2-3 hours. Go to a movie, okay? Cost you $15, $20 by yourself. Cost you $50, $60 if you bring your family. A video game is still the best bang for your buck. For $70, to get a game like this, you're going to spend hundreds of hours in the game.
Can I follow up on that really quick? Just staying along those lines of the skill tree, there's also the ranking system in there as well. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit too?
Yeah, sure. Those, and what we've given ourselves there is a lot of flexibility and flexibility to the player. First, we have the visual, right? I actually love these patches, badges that can go on a spacesuit and how they unlock. And then they're tiered. So as opposed to being a strict kind of tree you have to go down, you can say, I want to focus in technology, and then the different tiers of skills will open up, and it gives you flexibility within that. There's 5 of them. You saw that in the direct. And we are finding here, what you always want is
I'm going to rewind. I missed what he said.
backgrounds and the traits. It's a little bit of a original fallback, throwback to that, to Fallout, excuse me, and then say, these are optional. They come with positives, they come with negatives, and you saw some of that in the direct with the Adoring Fan and some other ones. The Parents is a really, really great one that we all love. So it lets you, if you're going to start over even, play the game in a different way.
Can I follow up on that really quick? Just staying along those lines of the skill tree, there's also the ranking system in there as well. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit too?
Yeah, sure. Those, and what we've given ourselves there is a lot of flexibility and flexibility to the player. First, we have the visual, right? I actually love these patches, badges that can go on a spacesuit and how they unlock. And then they're tiered. So as opposed to being a strict kind of tree you have to go down, you can say, I want to focus in technology, and then the different tiers of skills will open up, and it gives you flexibility within that. There's 5 of them. You saw that in the direct. And we are finding here, what you always want is when people are talking about the game, that they're saying, did you know? Did you know you can do this? Or they're comparing characters, and those character builds and those stories feel very, very unique for each person in that conversation.
I guess I should get Jez Corden's stupid question out of the way. I said I would ask it. So,
Please
so
do
Todd,
that.
just so you understand the background here, when we tweeted out that you were going to be on the show, Jez Corden, our friend from Windows Central, responded and said, "Oh, will you ask Todd this particular question?" And Paris just flat out just said, "I'm not asking him that." So then he DMs me. I don't know, he thinks I'm an easier mark or whatever. It wasn't his first choice, but maybe an easier mark. It's actually not that stupid a question because it's a big open world game. Todd, is there any form of space fishing? Is there any kind of fishing activity that you can do? Because in open world games, that is quite common. And in fact, it's maybe not that stupid a question because if you know anything about exoplanetary, the search for life, scientists will tell you that the best chance of finding life in the near future is little alien fishies and squids on under the ice of Europa. And in fact, recently we just discovered that one of the key chemical building blocks to construct organic life might be present on one of the moons of Saturn. So I put it to you, Todd. Fishing or
do you see Todd's face? Let me just rewind that for just a second. Wait, watch when it cuts back to Todd.
life might be present on one of the moons of Saturn.
He's like, I don't think we have space fishing. I don't know what he's gonna say. I haven't seen this yet. So
I put it to you, Todd. Fishing or no fishing?
Well, it depends on your definition of fishing.
yeah,
So is it collecting?
yeah. Because if you're fishing in water, but fishing on land is still if you're trying to bait something in, right?
Fish? Killing fish? Or is it specific to having
Is there
a
some
rod
kind of
moving?
rod that I can put into a lake and pull out an alien fish and then sell it or cook it or something?
That is one thing we do not have.
Okay.
Confirmed. No fishing with a rod inside liquid water.
Expansion though.
There's
gonna be
expansion.
Never
See,
know.
Jez Corden,
There's
I
going to
told
be
you.
DLC.
should
I
not
told
have
you,
asked that question.
Jez, this is on you. The interview's gone bad now, and it's down to him.
I like
Well,
that.
Let me try
I'm
and salvage
excited to
this.
say no to things.
Yeah, it's hard to
If
say
I'm
no.
smart, I'm really here to lower expectations on
Yeah,
them.
yeah. And me also.
He's trying to pull it all in, is right.
They're a little high. They're a little.
Well, let me try and salvage
1,000 planets, thousands of hours of play, no fishing. That's I'm out. I'm not playing Starfield now. There's no fishing.
this and turn it in another direction, which I think can lead to an interesting conversation. So the 1,000+ planets. If there's been any concern that I've heard recently about Starfield, it's been about handcrafted versus procedural. So obviously with 1,000+ planets, a lot of it's going to be procedural. And you even talked in the direct about there will be kind of breadcrumbs along the way with handcrafted things that you'll be able to do as you discover these planets. But my question is, I take it back to something like Mass Effect. I remember when
Did you really,
super
Al Dente?
excited, you
Why don't you just play it on
built all these
PC?
different planets, and ultimately there wasn't a lot to do on the vast majority of them. So with Starfield, when we think about these 1,000+ planets, of course we want to go out and explore the galaxy. We want to see all of these things. But when I get to these procedural planets, is there really going to be things there to do that are worth my time?
Be careful what you say now, Todd, because I've been asking this question for 2 years, or actually a year, when you said 1,000 planets. Okay, because if you say, well, no, then done. If you say yes, well, then people will be like, okay.
Time. Other than maybe there's a resource here, there. Is it all just handcrafted, or will there be procedural things that we could discover on these planets as well?
I think that's, the $1 million question as it
It is the $1 million question, Todd. Answer it. Answer the question.
comes to a game like this. It's a great question, one that we honestly struggled with early in the project. We wanted to do the planets because we like to give you that choice. Where do you
Right.
want to go? You feel like you would want that choice in a game like this. And so first it was technically, could we pull it off? And
Can you pull it off? Can you pull it off? We shall see in a couple of months. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. My son needs me for a second. All right, sorry about that. All right, where were we? Let me rewind for a second. He was stalling to answer the question.
In a game like this. And so first it was technically, could we pull it off? And, we did technically be able to, draw these planets, make them feel believable on the screen. Now, obviously, it's procedural. Okay, so there's no way we're going to go and handcraft an entire planet.
When he says entire planet, I have a big question about this. A big question. Because No Man's Sky is a complete planet. Like, you could land on the planet and just drive around the circle and then come back to your base or wherever you started, right? 100%. The way that they're talking about this, because there's cutscenes, like when you can't take off your ship and then go into space. You go into your ship, and it's going to be a cutscene of you taking off and going into space. And then when you're in space, it's going to be a cutscene going into the planet. So it makes me wonder, once I'm on that planet, can I go around the entire planet? That's what my question is.
What we do is we handcraft individual locations, and some of those are placed specifically, obviously the main cities and other quest locations. And then we have a suite of them that are generated or placed when you land, depending on that planet. Now,
Okay.
I'll also say for us, we view it as giving you, when you look at a system, here's the menu of things you could do.
Okay.
And like science, and we're pushing it, about 10% of those planets have life on them. Again, we're pushing it to the edge of.
Okay, I'm going to break this down just a little bit more. Let's back this up a second. He's saying that the planet itself, on the procedurally generated planet, they have a pool of assets that appear on those planets. So they have a pool of factories, bases, ships, buildings, whatever. Now my question is, okay, so I'm done with the story. I go out to the planet 200, right? I've been to 200 planets. In those 200 planets, am I going to see the exact same factory on a separate planet? Am I going to see the exact same house? If you have 1,000 planets, you have to have at least in my opinion, to make it, you don't go, oh, well, we've already seen this. You have to have at least 1,000, if not 3 times that amount of things that you can implant on those planets so they don't repeat themselves. You know what I'm saying? You feel me? Because I feel like if you go to planet 200, then you go to planet 201, 202, 250, 251, 270, 300, 400, and all of a sudden you're seeing the same factories with the same with the same faction in there, or you're coming across the same type of ship. That's gonna be like, oh, that's gonna give an automatic pullback of, well, I've already seen it, so I don't want to. It's almost look at the pushback right now that people are doing with Diablo. Diablo, when you go into a dungeon, how many times do you see the same boss, right? Take the dungeon, 115 dungeons, okay, but you're seeing the same boss in a majority of those dungeons. Now think of this as a planet. If each dungeon is a planet and each boss is a procedurally generated resource that they're just dropping into that planet, How are they going to do that better than a smaller game like Diablo with just dungeons not repeating themselves? You see what I'm saying?
On that planet. Now, I'll also say for us, we view it as giving you, when you look at a system, here's the menu of things you could do. And like science.
Yeah, he said, let me rewind a little bit, because he did say 10%, right? Only 10% of the planets have life. So think about that.
Some of those are placed specifically, obviously the main cities and other quest locations. And then we have a suite of them that are generated or placed when you land, depending on that planet. Now, I'll also say for us, we view it as giving you, when you look at a system, here's the menu of things you could do. And like science, and we're pushing it, about 10% of those planets have life on them. Again, we're pushing it to the edge of what do people think, what planets are in that Goldilocks zone versus planets that have resources.
Right.
You know, I think it is a moment when you land on some of these barren planets. And again, we will generate certain things for you to find on them. But if you look at a planet, you see the resources, it has things you want. There is, I love the Buzz Aldrin quote, the magnificent desolation. I think there's a certain beauty to landing on those and feeling I'm one of the only people or the only person to ever visit this.
Yeah, but I know I'm being nitpicky here. But I'm gonna reference No Man's Sky, because I played a crap ton of No Man's Sky over PC and Xbox. If I can find the resource on planet 200, and I find the same resource on planet 500 and 600 and 900 and 999, what is the point if it's a desolate planet? There's nothing procedurally generated there, and all there is just the resources that I could have found on any other planet. What's the point of that planet? Now, I understand the thought process of, well, you don't know what's on that planet until you physically go to that planet and land there and start exploring. Again, a little pushback is, if I go to one planet and it's really cool looking, right? And you're like, oh man, this is awesome. I can't wait to go to the next planet, right? The carrot is in front of you. You go to that next planet, and you're like, oh, this is cool. Something different. And then you go to the third planet, and you're like, oh, I've already seen stuff that's the same as the first two planets that I've already been on. Then you go to the fourth planet, and you start seeing the same stuff again. You're like, well, what's the point? What's the point? Maybe you can import life to your other planets. That'd be interesting, General. Like, if I find life on one planet, and I capture, again, we're speculating here, and I can capture those creatures and then bring them back to my other planet and maybe populate that planet with life, that might be interesting. That might be interesting. Jason says padding. Yeah, lots of padding.
This planet. So it's a difficult design thing. If you add too many things,
well, no, there can't be 1,000 resources, Water, because what about if you're just lucky or unlucky that you go to a planet and you're looking for one resource, but you're like, I can't find this resource on the planet. Then you're like traveling to other planets, and then it's been hours and hours and days, literally, that you're going, and you've been to 200 planets, but you can't find it. And all of a sudden you find this one resource. You're like, what the hell? And this resource makes you do something else. That would be pretty dickish as well, right?
Generating too many abandoned bases or towers or things to find, it starts feeling too gamey in some of those locations.
Let me rewind a little bit, because I want to hear what he has to say again.
Only person to ever visit this planet. So it's a difficult design thing. If you
Absolutely.
add too many things, if it's generating too many abandoned bases or towers or things to find, it starts feeling too gamey.
You see what I'm saying? I mean, Todd gets it. Todd gets it, but it's like, can you make that happen? Because it does. It'll feel too gamey. As soon as you see the same thing for the first time, you might go, it's not a big deal, right? And if they're trying to make this immersion of what's happening in the world or in this galaxy, then it might break that immersion. But he gets it. I'm going to rewind just one more clip.
Abandoned bases or towers or things to find, it starts feeling too gamey in some of those locations. So I think we've dialed that in pretty well.
Okay.
Depending on the planet that you're on. And so we hope everybody enjoys it for what it is, but it is an
What does that mean? Enjoys it for what it is. What I get from that is that there is going to be a lot of stuff, because he said that we've tuned it and we're pretty happy with it, right? Is that what he said?
Defined, it starts feeling too gamey in some of those locations. So I think we've dialed that in.
We've dialed that in
pretty well.
pretty well.
Depending on the planet that you're on, and so we hope everybody enjoys it for what it is. But it is an exploration different than we've had.
What does that mean? What does that mean? Do you know what I mean? And look, let me make it clear here. I'm not picking on this. I think the regular game, however long the story is, I think is going to be really good. I think it's going to be great because that's what Bethesda does. They do good stories, make you feel really good inside the game. And at the end of the day, once you're done with the story, if you want to continue and explore planets and stuff like that, by all means, go ahead and enjoy yourself. I'm being more nitpicky on the aspect after the main campaign, right? Like, I totally get it. If you get the campaign and maybe they send you out on side quests and you have to go to this other planet that they show on the map because you pick up something, and then you have to go to that planet, and then they procedurally generate something good on those smaller planets, because they did say 10% has life or whatnot. But like who set it up above? 900 planets, right? Mako says 900 planets. What's the point of going to the other 900 planets? That's the thing of, is it going to show itself? Now, maybe they've customized the regular game and it's going to be just absolutely mind-blowing. But once you go outside of the main game into those other planets, I think it's going to be repetitive, and you can't help that because Star Citizen does it. No Man's Sky does it. It's just the way it is. It's really, really, really hard to do what they're saying. And what he's saying, I mean, I appreciate it. I do. But it's also, if you read between the lines, I'm going to rewind it again. Listen to the way he speaks about it.
Abandoned bases or towers or things to find, it starts feeling too gamey in some of those locations. So I think we've dialed that in pretty well, depending on the planet that you're on. And so we hope everybody enjoys it for what it is. But it is an exploration different than we've had, where you're landing, you're exploring around that landing spot, and then you're probably going somewhere else.
This episode is...
You're probably going somewhere else. All right, let's see. This is advertisement. Yeah, it's ads. Okay. Mike, to be honest, will you main the campaign or get lost and sidetracked most of the time? Because I know I'll be sidetracked. I'll be honest with you, Mo. I'm a person that likes to complete the story, right? And I'm going to play different than most people because I have an idea in my head as a content creator what I should do and how I'm going to do it. Okay? I want to make it as entertaining as possible. So on my live streams, I'm going to play the game, but then I'm going to break out videos and I'm going to do something fun with those side videos. So exploring or doing side stuff, I'm definitely going to get sidetracked. But live on stream, I'm going to mainline the story. Because that's what we have to do. That's what we do. Let me see what Sarge set up here. He said, bro, all you would need is a series of hidden MacGuffins that are randomly placed on the planets that you need to solve riddles and find. Say 50 MacGuffins, people would visit as many as it takes. Sure, and that's basically what No Man's Sky did, right? No Man's Sky is like, you gotta go find this beacon out in the middle of the world or dig up something. Yeah, absolutely. That's what those games have already done, right? They've already done those type of things. Read between the lines. Todd is saying you get Wasteland and you get a Wasteland. Everyone gets a Wasteland. You get a Wasteland. You get a Wasteland. Everybody gets a Wasteland.
That, and I don't mean to dominate the conversation, but I think it's relevant here when we're talking about planets. Is, again, I've probably watched this direct like 1,000 times at this point. So one thing that I did notice was some planet biome diversity.
Real quick, before Paris says his next question, I'll rewind in a second. You're absolutely right. Look, if the game does a really good job of hiding the wizard, right? If they have interesting quests or things to do, soon as you let go of the hand of the creator, of the player, and let them go to a planet and they explore, they'll be like, this is amazing. But how long is that going to last? Right? Because if everything is completely customized in the beginning, right, for the planets that they've handcrafted, and then you go to a desolate planet, and you find cool materials, you find cool animals or aliens or whatnot, how long is that going to last to keep the magic before you're like, oh, right? Like I said, if you see the same, fuel depot or abandoned building or crashed ship the first time, you're like, it's not a big deal. But then when you go to another planet and see that again and again, the magic starts to wear off. And you're like, I'm just going to stay in the main campaign. Maybe I'll make a new character and then explore again.
You seem to highlight one planet where we did see different biomes on that particular planet. Now, I'm not expecting that on every planet, but this is something that you're
I'm sorry. Let me rewind to see what Paris is saying.
1,000 times at this point. So one thing that I did notice was some planet biome diversity. You seem to highlight one planet where we did see different biomes on that particular planet. Now, I'm not expecting that on every planet, but this is something that you're conscious of, that you're doing in the game. And it leads me to two questions. I'm just thinking the size of some of these planets. Is there really going to be this giant map that we're going to be able to explore across different biomes and find obviously interesting things and resources and creatures? But the other part of this is, and this comes to more to just the diversity of the planets. When I think about gravity, temperature, radiation, things like this, are we going to have to prepare ourselves to actually be able to land on some of these planets and explore them? Or is it just going to be, if I can get to the planet, I can land and do whatever I need to do?
There's a lot there, but I'll say,
Sorry.
we have a lot of biomes. We
Yeah.
do look at temperature, we look at the radiation, we look at all of those things on a planet so that your suit and your protection, you can get certain ailments if you're not ready, and certain weather things can
Lock you off the planet. You're like, I want to go to that planet, but I can't get to that planet because the radiation's too high. I have to upgrade my suit, so I'm going to go back to this planet. And then when you get to that planet, there better be something on that planet.
come through with all of that. So there are obviously planets that might have one type of biome, and there are planets that have a whole bunch. And their creatures and the plants and everything go with the biome. So there's a whole part of the game where surveying a planet, like discovering all of the flora and fauna and
No Man's Sky does that.
Planets also have traits, usually geological things that are inherent to that planet, and uncovering those. And if you fully survey a planet, that data is actually worth a lot of money, credits in the game that you can sell. So there's a whole part of the game that's really just doing that. It's a little more, I almost describe it Zen-like. You can get on a planet where
that's fine.
The creatures there, some of them can be aggressive, where it can get dangerous if you're exploring the planet. And you can watch the creatures. We've actually had a problem at times with the predator creatures going and killing all of the more peaceful creatures you're coming across.
Wow.
Why are they all dead? And then you realize there's something dangerous in the area. So I would say this, that we do everything that you mentioned, and we really try to mix it up and spend a lot of time balancing that. So it is fun minute to minute, but you also know what you're getting into.
Okay. I mean, that's understandable. Sarge says they're trying to simulate a fucking galaxy. Everyone needs to calm the fuck down. Okay? Nitpicky people. How do you fill up a fucking galaxy worth of content? What is it you want? I don't want anything. I'm just taking the words that he's saying, Sarge, and breaking it down. Right? Because people are going to look into it and go, he said there's going to be 1,000 planets. And it's like, I'm very impressed by this game and what the scale is. I mean, No Man's Sky does a quintillion planets. This is 1,000 planets. Okay? So I've seen what empty space looks like in other games. I don't see anything different that they're going to do in this game in the 900 planets that are not part of the 10% that they've procedurally generated and put stuff on.
Todd, I want to talk about the plants and the creatures. I guess I'll start with the creatures really quick. Of course, some iconic Bethesda creatures, the Deathclaw, the dragons in Elder Scrolls. Is there going to be a special creature in this, or will there be so many that there's not just one that we all point to and say, oh, wow, that was the bad one?
I mean, there's a few bad, there's one really bad one, there's a few, but you have to play it.
Okay, I like that. And then one of the most asked questions was, Todd, we land on these planets and people are blown away by the size and the scope of things. Is there a land vehicle or an option?
That's what I'm at. That's what I want to know. If the planet's this gigantic, is there a ground vehicle that I can I can do.
To maybe mount some of these wildlife creatures to use as a land transportation mode of transport?
There is not. You know, we do design it. I think when we've seen this with our other games where we want to design it so it feels good on foot, but we do have the boost pack. You saw some of that.
So there's no way, in my mind, that it's a full planet like No Man's Sky. I'm sure it's a gigantic playable area, but I don't think it's. I think there's going to be invisible walls and things that you can't get over in that particular area if you're driving around. I hope I'm wrong.
In the video, and you have skills for the boost pack. So the boost pack almost acts like this vehicle. It's super fun where you can fly through, and then the low gravity planets are just really, really something special in the game.
That's awesome.
So if I could pivot this into companions, question about that as far as companions, crew members, and some of the individual skills that they're going to have in the direct, it was clear that you'll have some crew members, you'll have some that you can station at an outpost. But I'm curious, even with that, will we have the option to just play the game solo without any companions or crew members, or is that going to be
that's always been like that
as we're playing through the game? And along those lines, can crew members on their own, through our own decisions, decide I don't want to do this anymore and they leave?
Okay, a few ones there. First, the companions are awesome. Our team
always like
did
the
a really,
companions.
really great job.
Even in
with
Mass
them.
Effect, I like the
There's
companions.
A lot of great depth there with the main companions, but we do support where, if you don't want to do that, there's traits that really make you, I want to play by myself. And then there's also skills that go into that give you special perks and bumps if you are solo. Them leaving on their own, they can, depending on the choices you make, they can get angry with you.
Yeah.
And then the relationship that you have with the companion can change based on the decisions you're
like
making
that
in the game.
If I get mad at my companions, Todd, can I space them and take them and make them walk the plank on my spaceship?
You can leave them behind. You can tell them where to go. You can assign them. To outposts. You can assign them to
That's cool. What he's just saying right there, that's cool.
Ships that you're not using and things like that.
I have a fun one coming in from the community. Courtney writes in and says, are the constellations...
I think you're 100% wrong there, Travis. The one thing that Bethesda does that I've always loved about Bethesda games, if it's Oblivion, Morrowind, Fallout, Skyrim, right? Even Fallout 76, there's story there. There's rich story always inside their games. Hence why every single Bethesda game, Softworks game, okay, like up to this point, minus Fallout 76, has always been in the running for Game of the Year. Always has. They might not win Game of the Year all the time, but they're nominated because there's rich story. And for me, regardless if the game is broke, buggy, doesn't run 60 frames per second, anything like that, I've always been interested in story. Story for me is key, right? I can read a crappy book, but if the story's good, the book becomes better. The game could be crappy, but if the story's good, it makes it better. And if gameplay on top of that is better, I don't care really about graphics personally myself, okay? I like story and gameplay. And I think they're going to nail both story and gameplay.
Constellation companions, the only ones that are able to be romanced. A lot of people very excited about romancing NPCs. What is the breadth of that? Is there a wide range?
The 4 main constellation ones are the ones that support full quest lines for them and romance.
Great. Also, I had another...
Yeah, but when they say create your own story, they're giving you all the options. They're giving you the tools to make your story if you want to role play. Like, I'm seriously going to be playing my character, the way my traits are going to be. I'm going to be Captain Kirk and Han Solo mixed together. Okay? I want to romance everybody in the galaxy that I can, and I want to be a space smuggler, right? So they're giving me the tools in the game where I'm doing the regular story, but as I'm playing the story, I get to craft my own story while I'm in the story. That's what they're talking about.
A great one. Someone wrote in and said, could my crew on my ship be all robots? Is there a possibility of having enough robot companions / crew members to be an all-robot starship?
Technically, yes.
Okay.
It's so weird the
Awesome.
questions that people come up with.
Yeah.
Todd
Well,
creates something
Todd just said something, and now everyone's like, "You told us I could be all robot crew."
special
Technically,
games. Him
I don't
and his
want to
team.
oversell. I mean, there's Bosco, and then there's a few other things, but
Okay.
not
Look
to
forward
the
to that.
extent of the humans, obviously.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges of making a game like this is that when you say, oh, it's, you know, a million planets and you can go do anything you want, that people
Hold on a second. He didn't say 1,000,000 planets. Calm down. Don't put words in Todd's mouth. He said 1,000.
are going to ask sometimes dumb questions like, well, can I go space
Well, yeah.
fishing? You know,
Yes.
and you realize that for every one thing that you can do in a game like this, there's still going to be 100 other things that you cannot do because we're not there yet. But you know,
Well, look, that's what we do in the studio, right? When you're doing a game like this or the games that we have done, we ask all the same questions.
right?
And
And then they have to make it.
it's how do we say yes as much as possible? So actually, they're not like, should you fish? It took us a while. We finally added it to Skyrim, right? So
So there's
all of
hope.
those-
There
all
is
those
hope for
things-
space fishing down the road.
What's great about these kind of games, role-playing games in general, that they're not defined by a certain feature set.
Right.
Todd, I want to talk about the music because I know music is very important to you and the team, and it's something you kind of base a lot of things off of. And we've seen music really get a lot of shine in the gaming industry over the past couple of years, which is all due and that deserved, right? I want to talk about how you build music into an open world game like yourself, right? Where maybe me and Gary never hit the same point, or how do you make sure the music hits at that right perfect moment if I'm 30 steps the wrong direction, or maybe I never hear that kind of music? What is that like, creating music around such a big, freedom-driven open world game?
Well, actually, music is one of the first things that we start with when we make a game. We do concept art, and we start writing the music. I think the music for Starfield, the work that Enon Zur has done there is just incredible. It could be my favorite game music. And we did that very, very early. So when we're working on the game, we're looking at the concept art. The music is giving us all a feeling of what this world feels like, what this experience feels like. How we do that in an open game.
I don't think so, Travis. I think if the game says he has A, B, C, D, and E, and in that game, if A and B are part of the story that they've crafted, and C, D, and E are for those people that want to make their own adventure and go travel the galaxy and do things, I don't think that's what people can complain about. I mean, you can complain about anything, but if they say you can do this, 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 and this, but you only choose to do A and B because that's the main story stuff, and C, D, and E are there for you if you want to do it, and they're optional, I think that's actually a really great thing. And that's why I think a lot of people like open world games. Open world games, for instance, Diablo, and again, because it's the game we're playing right now, A and B are, hey, here's the main story, here's the side quest, but C, D, and E are, oh, there's an event going on over there. I'm going to branch off and go do that. Oh, there's a world boss over here. Oh, there's Hell Tides over here. They're there for people to make those choices as they want, but you don't have to go do those things, right? That's exactly what you're describing there. You're saying that people learn nothing from No Man's Sky, don't overpromise. He's not overpromising. He's saying from the start, we have 1,000 planets. He said from the start that there's a crafted store and there's handmade planets, and we've crafted certain planets. They're there for you to do stuff, okay? That's part of the adventure. You can either dive in and do it or don't. But don't look at them and say, well, there's 1,000 planets and you didn't. My thing is, when I criticize that, I said it from the very beginning. I was like, 1,000 planets? I was like, I would be okay with 25, 50 planets. And you do what you do, because one planet, if they're saying is how big it is, you could literally probably spend 100 hours on that planet exploring if you really want to. That's someone if they want to do that. And that's what's great about these games. In Skyrim, I can continue going anywhere in any direction I want to do and do what I want. If I want to go collect every single book, which I did, and bring it back to my town and put it on a bookshelf, okay, I can do that. If I want to steal people's food or shoot everyone with an arrow or attack everybody, I can do that. That's not part of A and B. That's C, D, and E.
There is a whole system behind, like, what is happening, what's the mood right now, and then it is pulling from a collection of tracks that fit that mood, and then segueing between them. And it might be easy to say, oh, you're just going to do this all the time. But the trick we find is actually when it has time to breathe, when the music actually kind of subsides for a bit, so that when it does come on and we're trying to hit a certain mood that you're in, it's impactful. I've also noticed, and happy to hear from all of you, but sometimes the music can come on and maybe it puts you in a mood. Like, oh, you're hearing this music,
Yeah,
and
for
then
sure.
oh, I think I'm feeling I should do the following now. And then it puts you in a certain mood that you weren't in before. So we get some of that sometimes, not intentional, but it's not a bad thing.
No Man's Sky promised a lot and didn't deliver. I mean, No Man's Sky, each their own, right? Certain people think it did deliver and other people didn't. You can't make everyone happy in gaming. You can't. It's impossible, right? I can't even make everyone happy what I say out of my mouth right now saying something. Half the people will probably disagree and other people will agree. That's just the way it is.
Since we're talking about audio, I guess I should ask the other question that we were talking about before the show. This is will the game have this? We were talking about how much we love in-game radio stations, and Fallout obviously is one of the better examples of that. Is there any kind of space radio that we'll be able to listen to as we're exploring?
There is one, but it is pretty much local to a certain location. It's not something you can dial into when you're away, but there is a little bit of that, I would say.
Cool. I love in-game radio.
We were talking about that, of course, the radio host. Todd, did you?
Yeah, but Travis, if you look at that and go, for instance, you could explore and do stuff. Like he gave this story about fighting the pirates and then getting in the ship and the ship taking off. If you, the person, are listening to what he's saying and you're fantasizing about, oh, well, like for instance, earlier they said, well, General was like, well, maybe you take the animals off one planet and bring it to the other. That's an expectation that he's like, well, maybe you can do it. Maybe he believes in that now, and then when he goes in the game, you can't do it, and he's like a little disappointed. Is that under-delivering from the company? No, it's not. It's not.
Do you ever think to yourself, I would like to be the radio host for one of my video games. Put me behind the microphone. Let me go wild.
No, I don't think that's for me. And actually, the last DJ we had in Fallout 4 is Brendan Hunt, who everyone knows as Coach Beard on Ted Lasso.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's incredible in the game.
I mean, if you're ever looking to add like a wacky kind of morning zoo trio to the Starfield, radio universe, you know who to call.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Space Bike Mike.
Anytime.
So,
this shit writes itself. I told you the creative process was easy. It's like falling off of a log.
so Todd, to get it back onto Starfield directly, but to Todd, one question I had was about shipbuilding, and I'm trying to keep this limited. Also, the ships that you acquire. So obviously, we saw during the direct, you can build your own ships. You can let your imagination go wild. You mentioned in there that to reach the far reaches of the galaxy, you will have to upgrade your ship, along the way, which makes total sense. But me wanting to live out my space pirate fantasy in the game, if I'm acquiring certain ships, whether I purchase them or I quote unquote steal one, are those ships locked in at whatever quote unquote stats that they have at that time, or are they upgradable in ways of?
I want to make the last Starfighter. I want to make the Millennium Falcon. And I also want to make the last Starfighter ship
As well.
Let me rewind what he said, what Paris asked.
Steal one. Are those ships locked in at whatever quote unquote stats that they have at that time, or are they upgradable in ways as well?
They're all upgradable. They go through the same. We built those ships with the builder that you all saw in the direct. When you steal one, we do make you register it. If you want to modify it or use it in those ways, you have to spend credits to go register it. And that's for us to keep it from the economy kind of spiraling in those ways. You can fly it around, but if you want to mess with it, you register it, and then you go through that whole loop of upgrading it. I will say that that's a very deep system, and one that we expect for late game. It's not like you start the game and then you're going to get right into shipbuilding. It costs a lot of credits. It is, in a good way, a very complicated system.
Challenge accepted, Todd.
One that it was more of a longer term thing in the game. You can easily upgrade your ship, like just go in and say, I want to improve these weapons. I want to improve the
Flight of the
grav ride
Navigator.
or the shield.
Nice.
That's very, very easy to do. But where you go in that mode and you break it apart and you're building, that is a whole mode onto itself that is more of a long-term play kind of thing.
That actually leads me into, this is more of a fun question, but we saw this in the direct as well. And if you don't want to answer it, I completely understand. But if I'm going to New Atlantis and they scan my ship and I do have contraband, what happens?
You'll have to wait and see.
All right. Looking forward to that.
I
See,
feel like
that's
that
cool.
modular shipbuilding stuff is really cool. I can see people getting totally lost in that. And I'm right in thinking
That's 100% Optimus Prime. That's Optimus Prime.
and maybe this was addressed in the direct, I don't know, but like once you build your ship, you're designing kind of the internal layout of the ship that you'll walk around in as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, it comes with it. So you have these modules, and they come with the inner parts as well. And then when you click them together, and obviously you saw it, there are different modules for different things. So that gives the ships a really, really unique feel. And I'll say, when we designed the game originally, when you go into sci-fi, we sort of start with what kind of spacesuit do we want? What does that look like? What do the weapons look like? And it took us a long time on ships because there's so many ships in games. And how do we do them where they look cool, but they feel believable, where you can draw the line from where we are today?
Here's my question. Because ships cost money and separate parts cost money, can I steal a ship, break it down for parts, sell the ship to make a lot of money, or take pieces off that ship to add to my ship? See what I'm saying? My thought process in my head is like big game here, right? I was like, can you do that? That'd be awesome. That would be a good question to ask.
To these kind of ships, while also allowing the player to build them. So that actually, along with the planets, was a big challenge for us, and we all love where it's ended up.
That's great.
I have kind of a nerdy tech lore question. One of the things I love, because I love the nerdy science stuff, and I'm sure that Bethesda's got its own route into this as well. But like one of the things I loved about Mass Effect was they had really cool explanations for faster than light travel and even faster than light communication. Right, the mass relays would get you around, and the quantum communication would allow instantaneous communication over like the span of light years. I presume that Starfield has its own version of all that tech lore, right? This is how we're able to travel faster than light. This is how we're able to communicate faster than light.
Definitely. I mean, we say grav drive here, but it stands for the graviton loop field array, the way the different bands bend space in front of you, and the more
I like the firing. I didn't notice that before. The firing with the shields.
it can bend it, and you're actually taking space and you're folding it, you're bringing the space towards you. There's some great papers out there on like warp drives and quantum physics.
I was going to say, this is not a dissimilar to warp drive, right? Where you contract the space in front of you and expand the space behind you.
Technically, like, that's what it is. And we do get into, with the game, gravity and how that affects, people in.
Todd's scrolling through his notes right now. He's like, wait a minute. He's asking about the quantum physics of stuff. Hold on a second.
This universe, how they bend it, how they feel about that, and so forth. So we do a lot of interesting.
I didn't notice that.
They feel about that.
Look at the
and so forth. So
you can dock to another ship. See, this is what I'm talking about. Space pirates, right? Like, I'm going to be Captain Kirk piloting my ship. In Captain's Log 342, we're evading a ship today. Okay? My crew, and then I bring my crew along with me, and we park on this ship, and we invade this ship, and we take it over. Now, I would love if I could take my crew, they stay on our ship. Meanwhile, I stay on the new ship, take that ship to the scrapyard, and then break that ship down to make millions of coin. You know what I'm saying? Like, that would be phenomenal. I would just do that. I wouldn't even care about the story. I'd be like, dude, I'm a space pirate stealing ships.
we do a lot of interesting things there. But to your point, Gary, we did spend a lot of time originally. What is the fiction of this new universe that we're building, and how do we get from today to the...
You can't be Captain Kirk. He doesn't go on missions. Yeah, but he likes to have sex with everybody in the galaxy. That's that part of Captain Kirk. Han Solo is going to be one stealing stuff.
Tech level of this game, and have that... It's still a video game, right? So I don't want to like overpromise here or anything, but make that...
Hold on, I want to hear what he says. What he says there.
Of this new universe that we're building, and how do we get from today to the tech level of this game, and have that... It's still a video game, right? So I don't want to like overpromise here or anything, but make that for the reality of this game feel believable.
Right.
That's the key word there. Feel believable.
Todd, I want
That
to
is-
stay on
please.
tech with you really quick because I know you're a big tech guy. And of course, we see the Xbox Series X and of course, PC's continuing to push the level of tech for
That's right,
game
Kirk Solo.
developers like yourself and the team. What are some of the benefits you've seen with the Creation Engine 2, maybe Dolby Atmos? Are there things that really stand out to you going, man, I love that we can utilize this, or I can't wait for the future to continue to push this?
You know, we are just so happy with the new engine. It took us so long to do. Our tech team, they're wizards, you know, led by Chris Rodriguez and Joel Denault. And what we're able to do in the game and have all these things looking amazing and running, from all of the items that we're simulating and people, spaceships, full planets. Our lighting model is just awesome. The real-time GI. We didn't really show this off, but I'd love to in the future, which is we have some great volumetric fog and how that interacts with the lighting. Then you get into the physics and we start messing with gravity. It gets even crazier. Our quest system, I think people are, you know, there are a lot of open world games now, but I think what really makes ours different is that all these quests are running. It's not like you start a mission and we shut everything down. You can be on dozens of these at once. And that obviously it creates a lot of chaos sometimes in our games. We're aware of that, but it also creates these magic moments that we just love and our players love. And I think that's what's really, really special about it.
Well, Todd, that actually leads me into one question that I know the community has been asking a lot since the Xbox showcase. Fantastic interview you did with Ryan McCaffrey, and you did address why Starfield is 30 frames per second. Totally understand it, totally get it. Think Digital Foundry did a great job following that up. But my question to you is, was it ever under consideration to potentially do a performance mode that you would take away some of these features like you just talked about?
Just say no, straight up. No.
Volumetric fog.
We never looked at taking features away. Our focus is on delivering all of that. Obviously, we've seen all those comments. Digital Foundry, they do an incredible job. I don't think they know how everybody in the game industry watches every single one of their videos. They do a fantastic job. And ultimately, look, we boil it down to we wanted the consistency. Game is running great, but we don't want players to ever think about it. We have obviously seen other games that have performance modes, and we lean toward consistency overall, and we, you know.
Now, what is it going to take for people to understand that that's what the company wanted to do, right? Regardless of the platform it's on, right? He wanted it, and he said this 2 years ago. We shoot for 30, right? We shoot for 30. And everyone's disappointed because it's not 60. But he said years ago that it wasn't going to be 60.
Talk to our fans and hear that from everybody. So we're feeling really great. Game feels great in your hands. And I would say, look, developers know this, but there are things that you can do to make that look and feel great. Things like motion blur, how fast the game refreshes or reacts to a controller input, all of those things matter to something feeling great. And I can honestly say this is the best feeling game that we've had.
Awesome.
Awesome to hear.
Is it fair to argue 60 frames issue for Starfield if the game has never planned to have it? I don't think so. I mean, you could talk about it. You could have conversations about it, Tiny, but I don't think so. I think, and I've said this in the past, if the artist decides to paint a picture in pencil and not use paint, right? And you're like, well, you should have used paint. I mean, the artist gets to choose what they want to use to make the actual art. And in this piece of art, the developers, the company, was always shooting for 30. Was always shooting for 30. People are like, oh, they're lying. They've said, he said it in an interview 2 years ago that they were shooting for 30 frames. Everybody else was hyping it up to be, oh, it's on the new system, so it's going to be 60 frames, right? And I get it. One conversation is that it's new system, it should run for this. And the bad part about this is because Microsoft bought them, and it's a first-party title, okay? So it looks like Microsoft can't run 30 frames. If it was still on PlayStation, it would still run 30 frames per second because that's what they were shooting for.
But I have a question, and this is mainly because it's been on my mind recently, because I'm like a lot of people, I'm playing a lot of Diablo 4. And I love Diablo 4, but it also reminds me a lot of what has become very kind of calcified and very familiar and gamey to me. We were just talking about this before the show. So Todd, I wanted to ask you like how you approach things like side quests and I don't know if you feel like it's necessary to try and break this cycle and get away from it, but for me, it's starting to feel very old, where I walk into a village in Diablo or any one of these kind of games, and here's my side quest. Space bandits stole my trousers. Go kill 10 of these bandits. One of them will drop something, bring it back to me, and I'll give you a better hat. And I just feel like I've been doing the same shit for like 30 years. And I'll still do it because that, push the button, get a pellet, dopamine hit still works. But no, I wish we could find a different side quest or dynamic or a different way that didn't feel so like gamey as that. And I don't know if there's a question you've asked yourself over the course of developing so many games or in this game, Todd. Like, do you get what I'm talking about when I feel like a lot of these quests feel like generic video game quests? And how do you break out of that sameness?
Before he answers, I want to kind of answer this, right? Again, the disguise of this makes you feel like you're doing something more important than you're doing. If you really think about all the quests that you do in video games, they're all fetch quests. They might be different. Go grab this book. Go grab this shirt. Go grab these trousers. Go find this person. Go bring this person back. They're all the same, but yet different. And when people just do this and they don't listen to the words coming out of the NPC's mouth and be a part of that story, then yeah, the bare minimum, it comes out as it's a fetch quest, which is mostly what happens. Go over here, kill these guys, bring me back the head. Go over here, kill these guys, find the piece of paper. It's all the same. It's always a fetch quest, but disguised differently.
Yeah, and to show how much I listen, I believe you mentioned that on an earlier podcast.
Yes, like he's not.
Yes,
I told you Todd wasn't full of shit. He actually,
I think you said, I guarantee Starfield's going to have some of this.
Yeah, I mean, because it's hard to completely reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, because you can't undo that. That's a huge chunk.
But like, I don't know. I just feel like it always reminds me that I'm in a video game when someone tells me a story like that. Like somebody stole my pet cat.
That's going to happen in the game.
Go find it, and I'll give you some space gold, or a better pair of gloves, or something. I don't know. It feels like we've just accepted that that's what side quests are now, and I wish there was a way to approach them differently. Is there anything in the side questing off of the main quest line in Starfield where I'm going to go, oh, that's a different way to do a side quest? That's cool.
Well, look, it comes down to making all of that content, and our folks have done an incredible job there, and there really is a lot of it. So we have a lot of specific quests.
What Todd is actually saying is, yes, there's going to be a lot of the same type of quests.
But it's not what you're talking about, the sort of random one-off ones. I don't think it's mutually exclusive. We obviously have a bunch of that.
Right.
You can land on a planet and go to an outpost, and we're going to generate a mission nearby, and you're going to see some of that. But I think that's okay if you know you're in for it. And those activities, if the gameplay is good, can be fun, but they shouldn't take the place of those more in-depth ones. And we've done a lot of those.
Right.
It's about the feeling. If you could disguise your game better, if you could disguise the side quest or the fetch quest better, then if it makes you feel different, then it's fine. But if it's the same, go grab a shirt, I'll give you these pair of boots and stuff like that. I get it. I get his question. But it's going to be really hard for any game. And I would love to know, anybody that has an answer to that, how do you change the quest line where it doesn't feel like a fetch quest?
Todd, you talk about content. I'm going to start ramping us down. So guys over there, start thinking of your final questions for Todd. I want to be respectful of his time and get us out of here in a timely manner. But talk about content, Todd, and of course, you and the team, and thinking about what you guys can create. But also, there's the side of the mods. And, your team at Bethesda have done a really great job with mods and allowing the community to create and build within your worlds. Have you seen something that stands out to you in previous games through the community where you go, man, that team did a really great job. That is awesome on the mod side of things. And of course, moving forward, are you excited to put mods into this game with so many planets to explore and the opportunity to create?
Yeah, I think Starfield is going to be kind of a modder's paradise. It's part of our DNA here. We've been doing it for over 20 years. And our community around that, because look, we've usually been classically single player. That has been our community. And people are still modding our games and playing them. So we're doing a lot of it. And I think one of the things that I'll call out is it's important for us not just to enable that, but to participate.
I want to rewind for a second. maybe I'm reading a little too far into this, but listen to what he said again. Hold on.
That has been our community around that, because look, we've usually been classically single player.
They're asking about mods, and he just said usually we're single player.
And our community around that, because look, we've usually been classically single player.
Now, obviously, he could be referencing Fallout 76, but why would you bring that up as far as the modding community is and say that usually we're single player? I don't know. I'm gonna put a pin in that.
That has been our community, and people are still modding our games and playing them. So we're doing a lot of it, and I think one of the things that I'll call out is it's important for us not just to enable that, but to participate, right? To make
No, Travis, that's not what I'm saying. I understand it's a single. You can still have mods. That's not the way he referenced it.
it easy for them to make this where they can make it not just a hobby, but a career. We've had a lot of great success there. So looking forward to what everyone's going to do with Starfield, just like cannot imagine.
Right, Jesse? Like, he asked about the modding community, and he said usually we make single-player games. Why would you even bring that up? Obviously, we know that Starfield's a single-player game, and the only game that you haven't made that's not single-player is Fallout 76. So it's a little weird that he brought that up. Maybe he's saying mods make more sense for single-player than... No, Travis, listen to what he's saying. The question is...
So many planets to explore and the opportunity to create.
Yeah, I think Starfield is going to be kind of a modder's paradise. It's part of our DNA here. We've been doing it for over 20 years. And our community around that, because look, we've usually been classically single player.
Why would he say that? The question is about the modding community, and usually we're about single player. It doesn't make sense.
That has been our community, and people are still modding our games and playing them. So we're doing a lot of it, and I think one of the things that I'll call out is it's important for us not just to enable that, but to participate, right? To make it easy for them, to make this where they can make it not just a hobby, but a career. We've had a lot of great success there. So looking forward to what everyone's going to do with Starfield, just like cannot imagine.
That's awesome.
Same. I'm going to be very excited for that.
No, I'm excited for the mod that makes it into Star Wars. That's happening. You know that's going to happen. How fast? That's the key.
Question I have as we wrap this up. There's 1,000 more I would love to ask, but we want to be respectful of your time. Outposts. You kind of slightly mentioned that a few minutes ago, but something I caught again during the rec towards the end was it sounds like there's going to be kind of an advanced feature with some of these outposts where you can actually leverage some of the plants and animals on the particular planet that you're on to generate resources, which then made me think about, well, if I land on a planet, am I limited in the resources that I can use to build an outpost? In other words, is there only so much I can do without, is it unlimited what I can do for an outpost is what I'm trying to say. Can I build whatever I want, or do I have to have a certain amount of resources to build whatever, design that I'm thinking of at that time?
So outposts, kind of like I was talking about with shipbuilding, is a very deep system, and it does involve a lot of resources to really, do what you want to do.
Is there going to be a build limit like in Fallout 76? I hope not.
You can do all of that, so you can land on a planet and start building, but you're going to need to really go crazy. You're going to need to develop your character skills. You're going to have to collect those resources, but there is a ton there, and you can even actually somewhat connect them between planets, shuttling cargo between.
Oh, see, that's cool. That's cool. I'm going to rewind that for a second.
You're going to have to collect those resources, but there is a ton there, and you can even actually somewhat connect them between planets.
Now, he says somewhat connect between planets. That's interesting to me because now it gives me a little bit of more hope of going to other planets, setting up an outpost, and then getting those so you go to a planet, and now you're getting those resources. Now you don't have to stay there and never come back. You build a base on that, a resource node basically, and a factory on there, and then they ship from that point to your main base. So you're always getting constant supplies. So now that is a completely separate track of like, yeah, I'm operating a base on this planet to set it up so I can trade back and forth. That's cool. Now he said somewhat, so let me rewind it again.
You're going to need to develop your character skills. You're going to have to collect those resources, but there is a ton there, and you can even actually somewhat connect them between planets, shuttling cargo between them. So it's a really, really cool system. But I will say again, like shipbuilding, one that has a lot of depth. It's not really meant.
So it's more of an end game type of thing.
As like an early player kind of system. It's meant to be one that you're going to play over a long period of time.
Well, that brings me on to just a quick follow-up on that. So potentially can Outposts be an economy generator for you as well?
Yes, they can.
Absolutely. Fantastic.
I want to know if I can steal ships and sell them and scrap them. Can I make a ship scrap yard, grab ships, break them apart, and sell them? Someone asked Todd the question.
Fantastic.
Gary, what are final questions for Todd?
I always like to ask at least one question from the point of view of like a creator, right? Because I create stuff and I'm always really neurotic about putting it out into the world. Are people going to like it? I just wanted to ask Todd, like as we close in on the final months now, this game, going out into the world and it being a big moment of truth after all these years of development, like where are you emotionally typically at this point?
Somewhat big. I think what he's talking about when he says somewhat go between, it might be because it's outside of the galaxy. So it might have to be inside the one or inside the, you know what I mean? Like maybe you leave this galaxy to go to another galaxy and you can't interconnect them. But if you're in, let's say, you have a place on Venus and then Mars, you can connect the two and go back and forth. Maybe something like that. Again, speculating when he says somewhat.
And where are you right now with this one? Like, is there a certain amount of confidence, like, we know we've got the goods and it's all going to be great? Or is there always that little bit of imposter syndrome, neurosis, like, you never know until it goes out into the world? Like, where are you on that spectrum?
But, you've been through it, Gary. You have something. We've worked just so hard on it. I'll say again, the team here, many of us have done this for...
I think there is, though. The way he talked about it in another interview with Ryan McCaffrey, I'm pretty sure he said, Horseman, that you can send or maybe it was in the 45-minute long video, you can send your companions off to go do something, and they're working while you're gone. So there is that passive mission, and I think that already happens in Fallout 76, if I'm not mistaken. Like, you can make a guy go do a job, and they come back and give you stuff, don't they?
Decades together in some cases, and we have put just everything that we think we've learned and maximum effort into this one. And look, we love it, and our fingers are crossed that everybody feels the way that we do about it. And we're just really kind of humbled by everybody's excitement for it, and it's fuel for us, over these last few months to make it as good as it can be for everybody.
Do you feel any additional pressure given, I mean, obviously this is not even within your control. It's just kind of the way that the history of Xbox has worked out that, there's been, the vibes have been off with Xbox for a little bit. Like, where are the games? So where are the big games? And Starfield has kind of emerged as just wait for Starfield. This is going to be like, it kind of feels like, like when they redid Star Wars, right? They paid $4 billion. I remember J.J. Abrams said this movie didn't cost $150 million. It cost $4 billion because that's what we paid for Star Wars. And this is the kind of thing where, like, if something that big, the stock price of the parent company moves on how these mega tentpole things are received. Do you feel like you're carrying like the weight of like Xbox on your shoulders right now?
No.
when that's kind of the narrative that seems to be emergent, like Starfield was going to be
No.
the standard bearer for Xbox this year?
I think I was feeling better before you asked that question.
Exactly.
Look, we're focusing on what we can do. Like I said,
He's like, holy shit, I didn't even think about that.
on this game, and I will say Xbox has been just, their support has been incredible on this, with Phil and Matt Booty and the team over there. And obviously we worked with them for a long time, going back 20 years at Morrowind, but being part of Xbox and their support has really, it has allowed us to be this ambitious and take these risks, and fingers crossed.
That's great. Paris, one more for you. I see you.
Sneaking it in. Two quick yes or no ones for you. Are there black holes in this game. And my dear friend Emily, she would kill me if I did not ask this. Can Vasco wear a hat like Mr. Handy did in Fallout 4?
I'm going to pass on the first question. Can Vasco wear a hat?
Passing on the first question means it's in the game. Black holes are in the game.
Not currently, but I'm sure that will be an early mod.
And you just gave him an idea for a microtransaction to put on the robot.
I'm sure it will.
Todd, of course, I want to thank you for joining us
Thank you,
today.
guys.
I have two quick small ones for you. Have you ever wanted to do a smaller project? You and the team, Todd, have created these massive, incredible games. Have you ever thought about making a small game?
Like a little Pentiment kind of thing on the side? Yeah.
They did. Fallout Shelter.
We have the mobile team. We did Fallout Shelter, which I think is our most played
It's an excellent game. Fallout Shelter is an excellent game, and it's a lot of fun.
game ever at this point. So we do.
Did you hear what he said? It's the most played game ever in their company.
Making a small game.
Like a little Pentiment kind of thing on the
Something small.
side? Yeah.
We have the mobile team. We did Fallout Shelter, which I think is our most played game ever at this point. So we do some of that. We have some mobile stuff going too that looks really cool that we haven't talked about. So we get to dabble in that. But at the end of the day, you know, I as a player, I like the big worlds that I can get lost in. That's why, you know, many of us here wanted to make games. And it's really, really rewarding for us, and just so thankful for the opportunity, and thankful to be here with you guys today.
Todd just hit the nail on the head, Danny. You'll have heard me say this on the podcast before, that my favorite kind of games are not me thinking about like a game that I'm going to go play, but like a place where I'm going to go and a world that I'm going to get lost in.
Yes,
Mass Effect was
100%.
that for me. Los Santos was that for me. And that's
Red
why
Dead
I'm
Redemption,
excited
yeah.
about Starfield, is I want to just forget my real life. Not that my real life sucks, it's pretty good,
Right.
but I just want to forget about it and go visit a million planets and hit space aliens on the head with a hammer.
Well, that is the perfect way to end this. Todd, thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time.
guys.
And
Thank
most
you, Todd.
importantly, thank you,
Thank you.
to you and your team.
All right, so that's cool. Go over to Kind of Funny, give them a like with this interview. Big interview for them and whatnot. So I like the stuff they do. They're not the main media, but they kind of are now. But I like Kind of Funny. Greg Miller's whole group and stuff over there. Yeah, I think. Look, I love open world games. It's one of my favorite type of game. I appreciate what Bethesda does with their open world games. Skyrim, I played the crap out of Skyrim. I played the crap out of Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. Even Fallout 76, I had a blast in, even with all the problems that they had. I think there's two sides of this, right? There's two sides of, one, as a gamer, we're spoiled fucking rotten. Let's be honest. Okay? We're spoiled when it comes to, like, you compare to a game over the last 20 years where you're doing a side scroller, and now you're playing a game, well, over 20 years, right? You're playing a side scroller, and now we're going in a vast open world, and it's not like it's the first game to do this, right? Like, No Man's Sky is a huge point in the process of where games are going and how big they are and how they just run, right? You just look at it and go, this is absolutely mind-blowing that you could go around to all these planets and stuff like that. So as a gamer, I look at it and go, is it going to work? Is it going to be good, right? But as a fan of gaming, right? As a fan of gaming, I look at this and I'm blown the fuck away by what No Man's Sky has done, and what even Cyberpunk, what they've brought to life with all the characters in the world and whatnot, regardless if it's working or not when it comes out. What I'm saying, in the industry where they've taken these games and they've made them bigger and bigger and bigger, like, this is the next stepping stone in open world games. Then when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, you're going to look at that and go, holy shit, I can't believe, right? And they're only making one world, but how dense is that world? And I love that the fact that Todd said, no, we like making these open world big games. And I appreciate that they like making these type of games, because I do want to play a game where I just get lost in. Okay? I got lost into Mass Effect 2. I got lost into Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2. I got lost in Grand Theft Auto 4, 3, San Andreas, 4, 5. Like, I love these games, and if you play these games for tens of hours or tens of thousands of hours, like, think about that. Like, certain games you buy for $60, $70, maybe you even get it on sale for like $40, and you play it for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of hours. Now, Starfield is coming out on Xbox Gamepass, where you don't even pay the $70. Now you're just paying $10 to play the game And the amount of size that's in that game, that's worth the price of admission. Think about that. If you just played Starfield, okay, regardless if it's 30, 60 frames, whatever, all people that want to complain about it, if you just played Starfield, it would be $120 for the year, okay? I think you can get $120 worth of your time if you're a fan of Starfield. Obviously, if you're playing it every single month, you're going to get plenty of your value for just the base value of Game Pass if you're only playing Starfield. You see what I'm saying? You always try it with Game Pass on PC. If you don't like it, no big loss. That's right. The entry fee into this game, and the massive amount of this game, Todd said it in the last interview. He says, I think this is going to be the biggest game we've ever had at launch for amount of people that are playing it. Not people buying it, but the most people that are going to have their hands on it ever. And the most right now, minus Fallout Shelter, is 60 million copies of Skyrim. Okay? They're thinking that they can get that amount within the first year on just Game Pass and people buying it. Like what Sarge said, this is going to be a huge game. Nonetheless, they're trying to build a galaxy, and people are still complaining. And I want to make it clear that I'm not complaining about. My brain always thinks about the intricate parts of when you're doing certain things in the game, right? It's amazing to me where gaming goes. And think about this: even if you pay for this game for $70 full price, it wasn't on Game Pass, and then you look at a game like Assassin's Creed or Mass Effect or Grand Theft Auto or any other open world game, $70 for this game is pretty mind-blowing for the amount of content that you're going to have in this game and what you're going to do. Hilly says, I paid $250 for Starfield because it will look dope at work, talking to a smartwatch, pretending I'm observing an alien race. Yeah. The amount of role-playing that you could go inside this game and do, I'm going to have fun with it. Is it going to have problems? Is it going to have bugs? Is it going to have glitches? Of course. Of course, every game now does. Okay? I fell through the map in Hogwarts Legacy, right? I couldn't interact with certain things in Marvel's Avengers. Jedi Survivor, we fell through the map and it glitched out and did certain things. Some of these games, the scope is so gigantic, it's hard to comb over and stuff. Now, it's very interesting. I want to make a comparison here because I've been talking up to this point that I believe that Starfield is going to be a multiplayer game at some point down the line with 1,000 planets, the way you can build your bases, the way you can do certain things. And then I thought about it the other day. I was like, why would you make a game so big that you can't share stuff? But then as I was thinking about it, I was like, well, the comparison I want to make is Minecraft. Minecraft's world is so gigantic, and it's a single-player game. Yes, there is multiplayer. You can go into people's worlds, and you can do co-op and stuff like that. But I was thinking about that. I was like, you build all your houses, you do all the stuff, and you don't have to share it with anybody, right? My son, who plays Minecraft, has his own world that he builds, and he builds all these things, and I go into his world, and I play with him and stuff like that, and that's different because it's co-op. But he just builds stuff in his own little world, and he doesn't care to show anybody, right? Besides, hey, Dad, look at this, and he shows me his iPad or shows me his computer and says, look what I've built, okay? And I was thinking about that. I was like, that's pretty mind-blowing that you would spend all this time doing stuff just for you, just for the gamer itself. Hold on one second. So, like, when you're involved in the certain aspect of that, right? You're putting all your time in, and you don't even want to like show it to anybody. You just do it for yourself. So then I was putting myself back into Starfield and thinking, well, there's 1,000 planets. You can build all these buildings. You can do all this stuff. You can do all the ships, but you can't show anybody anything. Obviously, if you're a streamer, you're on stream, people can see what you're building. But in your own house, you're not showing anybody except your son or daughter or wife or husband, right? Like what you're building. And I started thinking, I was like, maybe it is just single player. Maybe it is just going to be single player. But then I brought it back and go, well, you know why Minecraft is so popular? Because you can play multiplayer. You can play on small servers. You can play on co-op. You can play certain things on your local thing. And then I went back to it and saying, you know what? I think Starfield is going to have a multiplayer or some sort of thing down the line because I think they do want you to play with your friends, or I think they do want you to show off your ship. I think they do want, yeah, you can show off your ship in Twitter world and whatnot. But again, there's something about exploring a game or playing a game, even in Diablo. When I play by myself, it's fun. When you come across an event and you see other people in the world, it's better. When you play with your friends and run through dungeons, it's even better. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this game when it comes out and in the future of it. It may launch servers that you can do, reckon. Yeah, I mean, it might do a Fallout First type of thing. I could see that happening 100%, if that's like the bare minimum. But I really do believe that down the line, and it's gonna be a while because I want to see how popular it is. Okay, but can you imagine how more popular it would be if all of a sudden the game is super fun, single player, and now you're exploring the world, but now you can explore the galaxy with a friend, right? That would be pretty badass. That would be pretty badass. That's every Bethesda game, though. So I'm just used to having it all to myself. Yeah, but Kylo, what I'm saying, this is on a different scale, though. Come on. This is on a completely different scale. Like, Skyrim's a gigantic map. Fallout's a gigantic map. Okay? But this is an entire galaxy, right? Even if it stays single player, I get it, right? Like, I just told you the whole story with my son and whatnot. I get if it's single player and you don't get to show anybody anything. But I can imagine that they can open it up in down the road, but they're just getting it out the door, so people can just, fall in love with their role playing character and how they're going to play the game. Bethesda games don't have bugs or glitches; they have features. That's right. There's going to be plenty of features in this game, Dupless. Plenty of stuff. Out of all the games you're going to get your money's worth, but there's no way this game's going to be, it's not going to be a way to get, wait a minute, hold on, let me see what you said here. Out of all the games you're going to get your money's worth, for there's no way that this game isn't going to be worth it. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially if you're playing on Game Pass, right? Especially if you're playing on Game Pass, General. If you're not even buying it for the $70 or the $100 or the $300, whatever, whatever one you're getting, like, it's pretty crazy, right? It makes sense to add multiplayer after launch. You only get launch hype once, but that's kind of the only way to get 2 shots at launch hype, right? I mean, look at No Man's Sky. I mean, Travis brought it up earlier. They lied about multiplayer because 2 people went in the same place at the same time and they couldn't see each other. Then, Sean Murray went back and fixed it. And then when we got to go in the same place, they made that shared hub, and then you could go on adventures with there. That game blew up because you could play with friends and whatnot. So we'll see. I hate this little heart thing on my screen that I can't. I wonder if I can I remove it? Can I remove it? Bar pan, editor, app one, announcements. I don't know why. It's just in the way. I hate it. Mako says, I think it makes a lot of sense they took this time to raise the price on Game Pass. Wait until after Starfield's deep dive. May have accidentally bought the collector's edition for Starfield, and I'm looking at the Starfield controller on my desk. I may have accidentally bought. I think it is weird about that one thing that he said about mods. And he's like, yeah, we usually make a single player game. Why would you bring that up? Doesn't that kind of perk your ears up like the dog, when you're like, what did he just say? What did he just say? He's talking about mods, and he says we usually have single player games. And it's like, well, this is a single player game. So why would you bring that up? It would be different if it was like a Fallout 76 and they're like talking about mods and they're like, yeah, we usually make a single player game, but now this is multiplayer. We were talking about a single player game with Starfield, and he brings it up that, yeah, we usually we have a single player game. Did anybody else? Am I looking too far into that? Did he misspeak, you think? Or did he kind of hinted at that down the line we are going to have multiplayer multi-people. Like there's going to be multiplayer. I don't know. I don't know. It'd be cool. Look, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they can what they can pull off with this game. All right, Jesse, have a good one, man. There's no podcast tonight because Sarge's computer's broke, so there's no podcast. We're just playing regular games. I don't know what we're playing yet. I thought Game Pass's price increase would be more, but they only raised it $2. Yeah, we're going to talk about that right now. Let's talk about that right now. Let me close that down. Let me bring up the story here. So Game Pass, since we're talking about Starfield and whatnot, Microsoft addressed Xbox Game Pass price increase concerns. Microsoft issued a statement regarding rumors that the price of the Xbox Game Pass subscription could see an increase in the near future. With the attempts to acquire Call of Duty publisher Activision Blizzard, it's also ever growing. Let me skip down here. The January of 2022, Microsoft first announced the intent to purchase Activision Blizzard for over $60 billion. Microsoft still plans to go ahead with the deal. It merges if successful. Xbox Game Pass price would not go up, as Microsoft officially stated the increasing the price of the subscription would be counterproductive. Now, when Microsoft acquired Bethesda a few years ago, the price of subscription did not increase, and the Xbox owners say that it's similar fashion. It will not increase the acquisition of Activision Blizzard either. Now, Microsoft also stated by keeping the Game Pass price the same, Call of Duty players are more likely to stay subscribed longer rather than just getting on Game Pass each time a new game and series is released. Now, another interesting part of the document releases on the UK CMA points to Microsoft waiting to increase the competitive nature of the subscription-based gaming market. Microsoft says that it's improved in the lineup of Game Pass games, when Sony will improve the PlayStation Plus lineup, thus making the market more competitive, which is the bonus of everyone involved in PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass are always locked in a race to reach the most players. Now, Microsoft must convince the UK CMA to productive natures and positive valuation of the merge over the next month, as the authority is expected to conclude the investigation by April 26. Now, PlayStation players are not worried anymore, though that Microsoft stated that removing Call of Duty and PlayStation would make zero sense, and the plans has no plans to do so. Within the next few months, one of the biggest gaming deals in history will come to a close and will have astounding effects throughout the industry. Where's the one? I could have sworn we had another one that talked about the price increase. I don't see that one. Let me see. Let me see where this one is. Let me see. It was in the submitted stories, was it not? Submitted stories, price increase. Is this it? I think this is the one. Microsoft is hiking the price of Xbox Series X and Xbox Pass. Xbox Series X pricing will remain the same in the US and match the PlayStation 5 pricing in most other markets. Xbox Game Pass prices are going up in most markets. Now, Microsoft is increasing the Xbox Series X prices in most countries in August, a part of the US, Japan, Chile, Brazil, and Colombia. Well, August apart from the US, Japan, Chile, Brazil, and Colombia. The Xbox maker is also increasing the monthly prices of its Xbox Game Pass and Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscriptions for the first time next month, which will see a base Game Pass subscription for consoles moved up to $10.99 a month from $9.99. We've also held our prices for console for many years and have adjusted the prices to reflect the competitive conditions in each of the markets. Now, head of communications of Xbox is a statement that The Verge, Xbox Series X console pricing will largely match the price hike that Sony announced for PlayStation 5 last year, with the Xbox Series X moving to $479 in the UK, $549 across most European markets. Canada, $649.99 in Canada, and Australia, it'll be $799.99. Holy Christ, sorry, Australia. Starting on August 1st, the Xbox Series S pricing will not be adjusted in any markets, remaining at $299.99. I wonder why that is. I wonder why they're raising the price of the X and keeping the S at the exact same price. That's interesting. I know the reason. So while Xbox Series X pricing adjustments have been expected after Sony's move last year, Xbox chief Phil Spencer also hinted that October that the pricing for subscriptions wouldn't hold forever. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and Game Pass for console pricing will increase starting July 6th. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate will move from $14.99 per month to $16.99 a month, and the base Xbox Game Pass for console prices will also move from $9.99 a month to $10.99 a month. Microsoft is not changing PC Game Pass pricing, though. Okay, so that's all staying the same. If you're existing Game Pass monthly subscriber, Then there's a new recruiter price. Won't take effect until August 13th or September 13th in Germany. New Xbox Game Pass members will see a new price immediately on July 6th. And if you're a subscriber to Xbox Game Pass through the yearly code, the new pricing won't affect until you go to renew your subscription. Most markets will be affected by the Xbox Game Pass price increase, with the exception of some Game Pass consoles pricing, which remain the same in Norway, Chile, Denmark, Switzerland, and Saudi Arabia. So there you go. There's the prices. Microsoft hasn't changed the Xbox Game Pass pricing since launching the subscription in 2017, and the company is keen to stress that it isn't related to the proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard. These Game Pass prices adjustments are not related to the Activision Blizzard deal and intend to match the local market conditions. I guarantee you they're raising that price because Starfield. It has nothing to do with the Activision Blizzard deal. It has everything to do with Starfield. Microsoft Xbox subscription changes follow a general trend in price hikes over the past couple of years, and for entertainment subscription, Netflix raised prices again last year following gradual price hikes in recent years. Disney Plus and Hulu saw steps in price hikes last year too. Apple Music, Spotify have both increased the price for most markets in recent years, and Nintendo has not yet adjusted its Switch Online subscription service since launching in 2018. Now, Sony only just updated its own PlayStation Plus subscription last year with the PlayStation Plus Essential, Plus Extra, and Plus Premium subscriptions for PlayStation owners. There you go. It's raising $1 for the standard and $2. Oh, no, it's going up $1 just in general, $10.99 from $9.99. And then the other one is moving up from $14.99 to $16. So it's $2 for Ultimate, $1 for the standard edition. So there you go. And they're not changing the standalone PC Game Pass if you're just on PC. Why is that? Because they want more people on PC. They want more people to go away from buying the Xbox Series X. They want more people to buy make a problem. The problem is we're raising the prices of the X, but because the X has a disk drive. Okay, the X has a disk drive. The Series S does not have a disk drive. And then if you buy an S, you are in the ecosystem 100%. If you buy the X, you can still go to GameStop. You can still get a secondhand game. You can still get this type of stuff. But if you get the S, you are locked in at just getting their stuff off the Microsoft store, and hence why they'll give it and stay at the $300 price range, right? It's still a fantastic deal if you get an S plus Game Pass, and then you're in the market. They have you in the ecosystem. This is a very smart business model that they're trying to do here. Is still being lower than the PlayStation 5 digital. Right. I'm almost close to the number, though. Game Pass. Xbox has a new shiny black box S for sale for PS gamers who want to play Starfield. Exactly. They need to change the Xbox store. So you can see that there's definitely a push on purpose, right? We've talked about this in the past on Generation X Gaming, on our regular channel here at 30NSG, that you cause a problem. You raise the prices of video games, then the thing that looks low, because you paid $60 for games, now you pay $70 for games. And Xbox is doubling down on that, going, yeah, you pay $70 for games, and we're also raising it just $2, but it's still a better deal because you can get the Starfield and play it for $10 now, $11, right? $11 to try the game out, and if you like it, then you can stay on the service. Well, if you also take the plunge and you buy the S, well, then you're 100% in. You're 100% in if you buy the S. If you buy the X, you're not 100% in because you can still buy third-party games and first-party games at game stores, Target, Walmart, wherever you can buy games, secondhand, off Amazon, whatever. But if you buy the S, you're 100% in digital. You're 100% inside the Game Pass. You're 100% inside the Microsoft store. You can't go anything else outside. They need to change the Xbox PC store. Game Pass is looking like a better deal. Strange. Yes, no kidding. $89 and plus tax is around $100. Yeah. So it's a smart business move. That's what's happening with Microsoft as far as the Game Pass going on. It's raising its prices, which we weren't shocked about, right? We all knew it was coming. Right? Then we also have this story, which is, I said something was up about this, right? I said something was up about this. EA delays a big new magical first-person spell shooter, which is Immortal Aveum, okay? So EA and the developer of Ansisted Studios has officially announced that Immortals of Aveum has been delayed from its planned July 20th release to August 22nd. Now, this is not a big delay. It's 1 month later, but this makes you wonder, right? We didn't hear anything about this game till about a couple months ago. And then all of a sudden it came out. We're like, what's this? When's it coming out? And they're like, oh, it's coming out in July. Well, that got pushed back to August. I said when we first saw this, it has the feeling, and this is not a shot across the bow to them, right? I said it feels like an Outriders type of situation here. Something about the game just doesn't feel right to me. I said something's off about it. And apparently the developers see that there's something wrong with it either because they have to delay it for just a little bit. It says the update for studio website, the game director, Brent Robbins, said that a long delay will be used to help fine-tune the game and further optimize it for its launch on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S. They optimize. They need to work out the bugs and whatnot, right? This is a brand new IP, right, by EA, so it's a big risk. This is just like Anthem, basically. It's a brand new IP. It's a risk. The recent feedback to the game provides us what we already felt. The Immortals Aveum is something special. In order to realize our full vision, we're going to take a few extra weeks, making our new launch date Tuesday, August 22nd, the studio explained. This will give us the time to further polish the game, finishing optimizing on all platforms and deliver a strong launch, and we owe it to ourselves and you to get it right. So I'm glad that they're doing this as long as it's what they're saying is true. If it comes out and it's nice and polished and there's no bugs and glitches and it feels good, then bravo, congratulations. But it's very weird to me that you could have stayed silent for 2 months because they just announced it 2 months ago, right? We didn't know anything about this game until 2 months ago. And now 1 month, right, before it launches, they're like, we got to delay it. They could have just stayed quiet and then told us stuff. You see what I'm saying? So it's a weird situation. I hope the game is good. I hope the game that people buy it and it's great and you have fun, and it's another EA brand new game for them to sell, and maybe there'll be a second one 5 years from now. But I just find it a little weird. A lot of game companies are doing this lately. Like they have a hard date, and then like 1 month before they launch or 2 weeks before they launch, they're like, yeah, we got to delay it. And this is just yet another one that has done this, right? So we'll see what happens. Hopefully they polish it and they make it nice and good for those of you that have already pre-ordered or whatnot. Yeah, but Mo, that's besides the point. If you enjoyed it, there's still problems with the game, and they launched it, right? That's what I'm saying. The game looks great, but I think it'll still launch buggy. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I'm just saying, I'm on the side of don't say anything until your game is. Did anybody hear problems with Hi-Fi Rush? I didn't have any problems with Hi-Fi Rush. I'm not saying there's not problems with Hi-Fi Rush, but if there wasn't like news reports and stuff saying that this game is super buggy and broke. We knew nothing about it. They told us what it was. They dropped it the same day. It came out on thing, and it worked, right? It worked. All these other games need to stop doing the hoopla, like, hey, here it is. Like, if you want to hype up your game, make sure your game is done before you start marketing it, because if you tell us a date and the date gets moved, you're going to have concerns because people first look at it and go, oh, it's great. They delayed it, and now it's going to be fixed. It's better to have a delayed than a broke game when it comes out. The problem is it's delayed, and it's still broke when it comes out, right? That's the problem. So hopefully it comes out, and it's not buggy, broke, and unfinished. Right? Hi-Fi Rush has no bugs and has people searching to find bugs in it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They came out, and it was a done game. No advertisement, no marketing, no nothing. They're just like, here's the game. Boom. Marketing happens after the fact. Jesse Mack says, finally, EA now understands that what's a delay really is. They always pushing the games to come out on time to impress their stockholders. I just hope that they still comes out and it's good. Because once you delay it, now you're like, okay, cool, they care. But then when it comes out, it's still broke. You're like, what the hell was the delay for? That's what I'm saying. And the last story I want to talk about today is let me find this one real fast. Is the PlayStation? This one was interesting to me, and I totally get it. And let me bring up the other one because there's another story. I think Paul Tassi did it in Forbes today. Because I have Game Radar. Let me bring up Paul Tassie's article about, where is it? Yeah, okay, here it is. Okay, so let's look at the games radar first. It says Sony says it would withhold PlayStation 6 information from Activision if the Microsoft deal goes through. And I look at this and I'm like, okay, this is a lose-lose situation for Microsoft. Because one, Sony already set up and said that they would give us a shittier version of the game on PlayStation because they would make a better game for Xbox. Now what Sony's saying is, we're not going to give Activision, if the deal goes through and Activision is now owned by their competitor, they will not give Activision early access to what the PlayStation 6 is to make a better game. So the problem that we see that could potentially happen is that when the next Call of Duty comes out, because it didn't know what they were building the system on, that Call of Duty would not come out simultaneously for the system. And if it does come out simultaneously for both systems, it would be a lesser version on PlayStation 6 because they didn't have enough time to actually make the game for that. So Sony is trying to make it where they're damned if they do and they're damned if you don't. Pretty smart on Sony's part. So Sony says it won't share the new console with studio owner by its rival. So Sony has said that it would have to withhold information about the PlayStation 6 from Activision if it was required by Microsoft. In a new disposition on the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, a matter of Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard, PlayStation Jim Ryan made a comment seen below. In short, Ryan says that Activision has become a Microsoft-owned company. It would force PlayStation to keep PlayStation 6 information away from the publisher. According to Jim Ryan, PlayStation, working with Mojang, Microsoft-owned developer who makes Minecraft, actually supports this concern because in the redacted nature of the comment, however, there's no real way to work out how PlayStation worked with Mojang supports Ryan's new concern over Microsoft's buying Activision. So, as Axios reported, recalls in other tweet, Ryan previously stated that December 2022 that Sony had collaborated with Activision on technical features of Call of Duty. Redactions of Ryan's disposition means that we don't know what features these are, but it's easy to imagine it being something revolving around the DualSense adaptive triggers, for example. So this could mean that if Microsoft acquires Activision, that Activision publisher games would have less features designed specifically around PlayStation hardware. That's essentially what Ryan's getting at here. Although whether it's actually true or whether Ryan's presenting his hypothetical, purely to get merged, canceled is another matter entirely. This all comes from the FTC recommended blocking Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard King earlier this month, and both Microsoft and Activision Blizzard King said at the time that they plan on appealing the ruling. But for now, it lets the potential acquisitions look incredibly unlikely to be allowed to proceed by the U.S. regulator. So let me go back to Paul Tassie's article, because he says it a little differently here. He says, in short, Ryan says that Microsoft were to acquire Activision Blizzard, Sony could no longer supply advanced information about the weak console, PlayStation 6, in order to Activision to start developing games early. In turn, that would be giving secret console information to the biggest competitor, Microsoft Xbox. Here's what Ryan said exactly about this. Question: why would Sony no longer share confidential details about the next console and development once Microsoft acquired Activision? Ryan says, quote, we simply could not run the risk of company that would be owned by a direct competitor having access to that information, unquote. Second question is, why do you think Microsoft-owned Activision would not be incentivized to develop games with the PlayStation-specific features? Ryan, quote, says, I believe that the incentives, our primary incentive, will be to post-acquisitions would be optimized its overall Xbox business and not the business of Activision. So continue what Paul says. He says, Ryan goes on to say that right now Activision just wants to make good games for everyone that profit accordingly. But under Microsoft, the development would be a service of Xbox bottom line specifically. So he's suggesting that if Sony gave PlayStation 6 info to Activision to help start making a new Call of Duty early, Activision would then turn around and pass that information to Xbox overlords, who would then steal the PlayStation 5 or 6 idea for the Xbox Series, whatever the next system is. So we don't really know if Microsoft has any concerns about the other side of this coin. It's becoming more common for console makers, owned studios to have multi-platform games. Is Microsoft concerned that it would have the same to give if now Sony owned Bungie, but it's next Xbox in order for Bungie to start making Destiny 3 or Marathon what's going to be released on Xbox. If so, I haven't heard them say anything like that. So he says the other issue is that taking this logical conclusion, what is the endpoint here? It feels like the trap from Sony. If Call of Duty has no information about the PlayStation 6 development for PlayStation 6 would probably either A, have more issues than Xbox and produce potentially worse product, or B, force Call of Duty to release later on PlayStation, but either of those would break Microsoft's promise featured / quality parity on day one cross-console release date proposal, as they try to convince regulators nothing significant would change with the series on PlayStation. It's kind of a clever ploy by PlayStation, but it's also very much of a ploy forcing Microsoft into a lose-lose situation. If it is done in turn, hurt PlayStation with the worst Call of Duty or late Call of Duty, but it's also willing to suggest it will do this yet another bullet in the chamber to try to kill the deal. I'm curious to see how Microsoft responds to this, and I hadn't heard Sony go this far with any kind of argument to date. So it's interesting to see what PlayStation and Jim Ryan is saying about, if they buy this, we can't give the information to them because then they'll know the secrets and then they'll make the Xbox as well. Let's be honest here. Let's be frank. Okay, I'm pretty sure that both these studios that are making the PlayStation. Do you think it's strange that PlayStation and Xbox over the years have had pretty much the same processing power and whatnot over the years? Don't you think somebody inside the foundation or some secret or mole, whatever you want to talk about, knows what the other one's doing? Right? It would be very, very simple to get information leaked by calling one of the providers, because they know where they get their chips from. They know where they're doing all their stuff from. They can call somebody up and be like, well, wait a minute. They ordered this, so they're using that. There's other ways to find it. So for them to say that, well, other games that are on PlayStation that are Xbox owned are not giving secrets already. You see what I'm saying? Like in the article, Mojang is a Microsoft owned company. It's on all platforms. So they're not going to give them the heads up of what technology they have because it's already on the PlayStation. It's kind of weird. I totally get where Sony's coming from because they don't want the deal to go through. They're trying everything and anything to try to stop this deal to go through. And that's exactly what they're supposed to do, right? They're in competition, but they're not in competition, but they are in competition. And they're trying to stop that company from getting an advantage in the business. It's dirty, but that's how business is, right? Let me see what you guys are saying in chat here. But what will the fault of Sony? So it would be null. But that will be the fault of Sony. That would be the fault of Sony, but it also would go against, like what Paul said, if Microsoft signs the deal that said they would not give a lesser value game on PlayStation than Microsoft, and then Sony's setting them up, and then they have to give a less version of the game to launch at the same time. Yes, that is on Sony, but at the same time, they break that agreement that they told the FTC or the CMA that they wouldn't do, which is just scummy, right? Sony would be like, see, we told you Activision would be like optimized for PlayStation. Xbox was involved. Exactly right. It's so much bullshit. But business is business, right? It's dirty, right? You think these guys play nice? Do you really think that these guys play nice with each other? They're in the same business. They agree on certain things because they're in the same field, but they're all trying to work each other's, get advantage over each other. And Jim Ryan really doesn't want this to go through. What does this mean, a grain of salt, or I'm looking at this wrong? What do you mean? What's this mean, a grain of salt, or am I looking at this wrong? I mean, I don't know. I'm sure the Chinese factories that make both Xbox and PlayStation plastic boxes never leaks hardware info. Exactly, Tiny, right? And if Sony agrees to that, they also broke the agreement by not giving them the console. Potentially, yes. Right? Potentially, on the face value, yes. But we would have to see what that is on the contract end point of thing, Mo. And again, it's a double standard type of thing, right? All Microsoft needs to do is point out Mojang for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 era. Sony causing the deal to break is on Sony, not Microsoft. Make sure there's a statement on the line. Exactly. So I find it interesting. I find it interesting that it's very funny how this all goes through, right? It's very interesting. I wonder if this would backfire. I don't think it would, because I think Sony's pretty smart, and I think they have something planned in the background. Hence why they made the move when Activision was in the process of being bought. They bought Bungie, right? They bought Bungie. Went underneath the radar. They paid $7 billion. That's fine. It's the same as sort of like, was it $7 billion? Was it $5 billion? I forget what it was. But they paid money for Bungie. Okay. And now they're trying to buy Activision. They're trying to break that, because now technically Sony has the upper hand, right? Because they bought the #1 first-person shooter developers, basically, okay? And they're making a standalone first-person shooter Marathon. Plus, they have Bungie, right? Plus, they have Destiny. They're good at what they do. Activision has Call of Duty, and if the deal doesn't go through, now Sony has the better team, right? Activision's a really good team. They make really good games for Call of Duty. But if Microsoft doesn't get them, now Sony has bought Bungie, and now they have the next best thing, and it's in their first-party title area. So it'll be very interesting to see how this all goes down. And we're supposed to find out real soon if the deal goes through or not. Plus, Sony didn't sign any deal, so that doesn't matter, and how they can add that to the contract. Sure, but they also, that's one of the reasons they said they wouldn't sign, because they wouldn't give them the deal, and then they said they were giving them the deal, but then they just don't want the deal to go through, right? We know that, Mo. They don't want the deal to go through. They're trying everything and anything to throw at the wall to say, look, this is the reason that we don't want to sign. This is the reason we don't want to sign the contract. This is the reason we don't want to do this. You didn't sign the deal, therefore, when we get the console, you get the game. I feel like Microsoft should buy Steam. Oh, that would be I think that would be a bigger project than Activision. Talk about Monopoly-esque. You know what I mean? Because Steam is the beast of PC. Now, if Microsoft picks that up, now we're talking big things. But Bungie is for the streets. What do you mean by that, Mo? What do you mean by it's for the streets? You have to admit that Bungie is like right there. They're the next best like shooter stuff out there as far as bigger companies. It'd be interesting to see what happens. Double standards across the board, though, definitely. Right? Paul said it. What would stop Sony from making a lesser version of Destiny or Marathon in the future? Bungie's multi-platform, period. Until they're not. Right? Bungie can say what they want, but Sony owns them. And if they want the upper hand, obviously they got to make money off the other things. But what I'm saying is, if they can make a lesser product, because they say, well, we're not giving the secrets out. Well, how can Xbox give them the if you're not going to share your secrets, why would we share ours? And then you can't make the game for our platform, right? Then you're doing exactly what you said that you wouldn't want us to do for you. At this point, it seems like Microsoft isn't legally bound to provide a copy of Call of Duty to Sony's console. No console, no deal, no game. Yeah, but Microsoft wants them on that console because they want to make more money, right? What I'm saying, Mo, it is until it isn't. The contract's not forever, is what I'm saying. And because when a company buys out certain things, you don't have to abide by the contract they had, right? The contract was signed, for instance, when Microsoft bought Bethesda and ZeniMax, okay, and like Deathloop and the other games that were on PlayStation, they didn't have to continue with that contract. They could have Phil Spencer could have been like, yeah, no, those contracts don't exist anymore. We have a brand new thing, and they break those things because they're the new owners, right? Bethesda signed a deal where they were going to make the game for PlayStation, but when they got bought by Microsoft, Microsoft can choose if they want to continue that contract or not. That's their choice. They decided to keep certain games on the platform so they get the early access for it for whatever time frame, and then they cut off the other ones because they can, because now they're the owners of the new contract. There's no contract between Microsoft and PlayStation. There was a contract between Bethesda and PlayStation, but then when Microsoft picked up them, those contracts are nil and void. So what I'm saying now, sure, Bungie said that they're going to be multi-platform until they're not. until Sony decides, yeah, no, we want to get the advantage over them, and this is what's going to happen, right? And that contract could be for just Destiny. That contract doesn't have to be for Destiny 3. That contract doesn't have to be for Marathon. That contract is for Destiny. Destiny is multi-platform. Destiny 2, whatever, is multi-platform. I know, Mike. I was told I was stupid when I said that. Yeah, but you know you're not, right? Yeah, we all know. They said all games from when that are not even made yet. The contract is, the dotted line says all games in the future. Can we get that in writing? Is there an actual contract? Has anyone seen an actual contract that it says all games that Bungie makes from here to the eternity of life is always going to be on multi-platform? Because I'm pretty sure it's not like that. I'm pretty sure it's like, yeah, it's on all platforms up until this platform, and then when the next platform comes out, they don't have to divide by the contract. Have Microsoft and Sony signed a cross-licensing agreement in Intel and AMD, and AMD would be dead without the deal and its ability to steal the Intel research. I believe that Matt Booty has a contract in his pocket that you can sign 30. That's right. Anytime that they want to do the 10-year deal, he can pull it out. But what I'm saying, Tiny, is the contract of what Sony, because Mo's saying that all the games that Bungie doing is across the board. We don't know the exact contract. In the same way Microsoft wants to make the most money on COD, I'm sure that Sony wants to make the most money on Bungie games, especially if they're live service. Sure, but we know just from the fact that right now, if Activision gets bought out by Microsoft, Jim Ryan is willing not to share the secrets with Activision anymore, and he wants to make a worse product for PlayStation because he doesn't want to give it up. That's called spite, right? It's business, all right? But it's called spite. He doesn't want their game on their platform. He wants to try to sabotage the game on their platform so they can say, see, I told you they were going to make a worse game on our platform, right? It's stupid logic, but that's just what it is. I have it right here, 30. Hold on. Yeah, let me know what that is, Water. Let me know what that is. Obviously, I'm the one that said from the very beginning, I was like, they're not going to take Call of Duty off PlayStation because they need all the money they can get. They're spending $60 billion or $70 billion on the freaking deal. They need to make as much money back as possible, so they don't want to take Call of Duty off of PlayStation. PlayStation knows that. But Jim Ryan's like, well, we'll cut it off because instead of making their money back in 10 years, it'll now take 20 years because we're cutting them off of this. True, that's why there's a lot of bad blood between Microsoft and Sony now. Yeah, it's dirty. Businesses are dirty, man. That's what they're there. They're trying to position themselves, and they each have what they're doing is right. What Jim Ryan's trying to do is right. What Phil Spencer's trying to do is right. They're both doing right for what their businesses are trying to do. I'm so scared that PlayStation's live service model with Bungie managing the approval. Bungie game needs to make my microtransactions and shop cosmetics. There was a video the other day. Speaking of kind of funny, let me bring this up. Blessing, I think, was talking about this. Hold on. This just reminded me. He had a video the other day, and he was talking about. Let me see.
PlayStation's multiplayer strategy just isn't working. Let's talk about it.
He goes onto a spot over here. Hold on.
IP with PlayStation, which they announced at Summer Game Fest
you know what?
2 years ago. We also know that London Studio is working on an online co-op game set in a fantasy London. Guerrilla confirmed they're working on an online Horizon game. And then there's MLB The Show, which I know isn't exciting in this conversation, but PlayStation did refer to it as a live service game, and so it counts toward this number. A Twisted Metal reboot is reported to be in development over at PlayStation's Firesprite studio. Sucker Punch and Insomniac have both been hiring for multiplayer projects. Firewall Ultra, PlayStation's upcoming VR shooter could fit the bill, or maybe PlayStation's counting each yearly release of MLB separately. It's hard to gauge. What we do have is a pretty clear picture of PlayStation's live service promise, which is where we get into the potential. So an important question to ask.
No, I don't want the potential. I want, hold on. There's a, I don't want to watch this whole thing. Is this good or bad? Let me see if I can find it. Bump, 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 bump. Where the hell is it? I think that's potential. I don't want potential. I want...
Having Bungie talk to Naughty Dog, Firewalk, Haven, Guerrilla, and all of these studios working on live games is only going to strengthen the potential of this live service initiative. What can possibly go wrong?
This is it. The pitfall.
As it turns out, a lot can go wrong. Jason Schreier's sources say that the Last of Us multiplayer game has been scaled down, prompting this statement from Naughty Dog that the game has been delayed. Last of Us multiplayer was effectively announced in 2019 with an update last year at Summer Game Fest and a promise of new info this year. Its seemingly turbulent development can mean a lot of things. Maybe its ambition and scope was too large. Maybe Naughty Dog, a developer typically known for its extremely polished single-player experiences, is struggling making an equally polished online game. Maybe the commitment to a live service with the promise of ongoing post-launch content is a demanding task for even the most talented studios. And if any of this is true, maybe that doesn't bode well for PlayStation's multiplayer pursuits. According to Jim Ryan, Bungie is heavily involved in a rigorous portfolio review process where they evaluate the live service games and give feedback on their viability. And according to Jason Schreier, Bungie raised questions about the Last of Us multiplayer game and its ability to keep players engaged. And so it's been reassessed, which is good because if The Last of Us multiplayer ended up being another Redfall, I'd literally turn into The Last of Us Part 2 version of Ellie. But at the same time, it sucks because The Last of Us isn't the only PlayStation multiplayer game having trouble. Remember Deviation Games, that studio working with PlayStation on a new FPS IP? Well, it's been reported that they've suffered heavy layoffs, up to 90 members of staff, which is crazy because when they announced their partnership, they were over 100 strong. I'm not good at math, but 100 minus 90 equals I'm pretty sure that game is never going to come out. The company has also closed down Pixel Opus, the small creative studio behind Concrete Genie, and has ended support on Media Molecule's Dreams. And you can understand how that makes sense when these are the less lucrative elements of PlayStation's first party. But it does become a bit concerning when right after news of these closures, PlayStation comes out and states that by 2025, 60% of their investment will be in live services. 60%! If I told you 60% of my money was going to live service games, you'd think I was Snowbike Mike. And that 60% is in the midst of The Last of Us being scaled down, Deviation layoffs, and a PlayStation showcase focused on live service games that didn't impress the audience. Fair Games, Concord, Marathon, and Helldivers 2 felt like the MCU shows on Disney+. Like, sure.
Ouch. Ouch. True blessing. Very true, though.
They're technically PlayStation Studios games, but something feels off. Between purely CGI trailers, barren info on new IP, and an absence of what the potential of live service could mean for our favorite PlayStation franchises, we were left with not only a bad first impression, but a potential feeling of doom and gloom. We're in an age of live service where we're seeing games sink or swim in a harsh, competitive environment. Not only are games like Marvel's Avengers shutting down, but fan favorites like Knockout City, Rumbleverse, Back 4 Blood, and more are either shutting down or ending content development. And there's a lot of reasons for this, but one of the big ones is the fact that space is running out for new live services. And the bandwidth that the player base has to check out the growing list of live service games and invest a high amount of time and cash is growing thinner by the year, which is why phenomenal games like Knockout City have struggled to stay relevant. It's also why this part in this slide from Sony is scary, because execs look at this and see numbers, but the story behind these numbers involves a lot of failed projects, a lot of investment, and a lot of turnover. I freaking loved The Last of Us Factions mode from the original game. I think Ghost of Tsushima Legends is one of the most underrated modes of last gen. There's nothing I want more than for PlayStation's multiplayer strategy to work. Not just for the money, but for the brilliant games that can come from it. But for this to work, we need to slow down a bit. You can't treat this like a sprint, especially if you want games like Marathon to be good. I know the money in live services is very attractive right now, but PlayStation more than EA, more than Ubisoft, more than any other publisher, has the most to lose if it's not done right. So let's pump the brakes, because whatever's going on right now with all of this just isn't working. PlayStation's
So there you go, right? Bungie right now is being spread thin because they're looking at everything that's coming into Sony. They paid the money for Bungie. They're the best at the live service games. If you agree with that or not, they're the best at the live service aspect right now in video games. And Sony's using Bungie to make sure that the other things, hence why The Last of Us 2 DLC or multiplayer thing is being delayed. Okay, because they're like, yeah, something's off here. Okay, and then you have a problem. You have a problem here where if all these live service games are kind of coming out and they're kind of similar in some way, shape, or form, if they're all like shooters and stuff, that's another problem. So who's to say that Sony can't make Bungie just on their system? Yes, I understand that Destiny 2, it's almost over. Destiny 2 is almost over. Everyone's going to wrap up, and the story's going to be there, and obviously they're going to pitch something else, and there's going to be some sort of Destiny 3 down the line. Sony could easily say, yeah, it's only on PlayStation, right? Just like Microsoft said, Starfield's only on Xbox, right? Same exact thing. Double standard, throwing rocks at a glass house, but one says one thing, and the other does the exact same thing, but it's okay. So it'll be interesting to see where the industry goes with live service games, and if they're mad at each other. Jim Ryan's like, yeah, no, we're not making Destiny anymore for those consoles because I don't want to give our secrets away, type of thing. You know what I mean? 10 people can make a game. Hello Games, that's right. Marathon, oh my gosh. Do the Destiny PvP players want to hate that game? Of course they do. Because Destiny for 10 years was asking for dedicated servers and they wouldn't give it to them. And now they're selling a separate game for them, even though it's going to be a free-to-play game, okay, with dedicated servers and charge you microtransactions. Of course. Of course they're pissed off. And live service games for good, please, Jason says. Not with Sony. Sony almost killed Hello Games. Multiverses 2, it's dying out. This is why I make sure to support Hello Games. They can make and can survive Sony and turn around No Man's Sky. They have my support. Yeah, that game is always going to be synonymous for maybe everyone will turn around and do a No Man's Sky. Right? No Man's Sky is still pumping stuff out. I struggle to make time for Division 2 and Diablo 4. I can see Marathon going PlayStation only for sure. Yes, but at the same time, they want to make as much money as possible. It's a quick game, 3v3, was it 3v3v3 type of stuff, or 6v6? I forget what it is, but they'll want that as many platforms as possible because they want to make as much money as possible because it's a free-to-play game, and they're going to make money off microtransactions. Sony's in a tough spot. The high bar for quality is single-player games, and they created a level of expectation from its fans for the live service games. Redfall would never happen on Sony. Well, the funny part is, Redfall was going to be on Sony. Microsoft did them a favor by canceling Redfall on theirs so they can have it as exclusive on the Xbox. So they should send flowers and chocolate over to Microsoft because they actually saved them from having a shit show on their own system. Marathon is multi-plat. Sure. What I'm saying though, Mo, is that in the future they could change it. It's very simple. It is until it isn't. Lots of things can change based on the feelings of Jim Ryan and Phil Spencer. I understand the Destiny community. It was no secret that Chris B was developing another game and then go bonkers when it was formally announced. I think they're upset because they asked for 8 years for dedicated servers and they told them they couldn't do it. And then the next game out is a dedicated server. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with Sony because they are known for the third-person action-adventure games, right? Last of Us, Horizon, God of War, Spider-Man, right? They're known for that, and if they're putting 60% of their stuff, right? You can't have your cake and eat it too. If you're putting more stuff into that, sure, you could have your single-player action-adventure game still. But a lot of your games are going to be a live service aspect, and they're going to be multiplayer type of stuff. So we'll see what happens with the first-party titles and what what the consumer base wants. But we're listening. That's right. You can't have dedicated servers on a game that was designed peer-to-peer. Well, they could if they wanted to change it, though. They could easily separate PvP in that game, Hilly, from the regular game. They choose not to because they want people to engage with their content by playing PvP and the regular thing. They could 100% not link the guns in PvP and separate it and then have dedicated servers. But that's too much. How are they going to make money on that? They're going to split the player base. Remember, Bungie almost couldn't make it. The player base left so bad that they almost had to shut down the game. I'm sure Bungie will have cosmetics in Marathon that work with Destiny 2 to get players invested. They'll probably have a crossover. I wouldn't say like work in Destiny 2, but they definitely have a crossover to bring your like Guardian into Marathon. Because PvP has been completely abandoned. One new map. They hated it community-wide. It's like 4 years actually. No dedicated servers. Cheaters will be being an issue, and servers are shit, and so on and so on. Yep. How many of those Sony live service games do you think will be free to play? Well, I think he said there was, 12? I would say at least half. I would say at least half would be free in some way, shape, or form. People play PlayStation games because of the single-player aspect. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with the live service aspect. And this is me not talking shit about Sony. This is just me taking the information that we have and wondering about what's going on with Sony because they're pivoting, right? They're adapting. They're moving. There's also another rumor that I saw today on Twitter. Take it with a grain of salt. That by the end of the year, they're supposed to announce a handheld that it's going to be able to play PlayStation 5 games. Not the one that we saw, a separate handheld that's going to be like a PlayStation 5, but a handheld. It wouldn't have changed it. The player base was still turning up after the launch of Forsaken and the bandwidth to add dedicated servers. I was surprised, but they didn't throw the PvP bone with some maps. Yeah. Do you know why they didn't throw up PvP? They don't want people to play PvP. Why don't they want people to play PvP? Because they were making a PvP game. Make the problem, sell the solution. So for 3 years, they didn't support PvP in Destiny because they were making a new game, was PvP. That's exactly right. Make the problem, sell the solution. Hey guys, we have a PvP game here, right? Remember they were diving in really hardcore for PvP, and then all of a sudden, they just stopped. They just stopped. We were having conversations about how they could go like esports with Bungie, the way they were doing it, right? The way they were making competitive with Gambit and all the stuff. And then all of a sudden, they just stopped. Well, how long does it take to make a game? Right? 2 years to make a game like that? Glad said the best Destiny has ever always been PvE at its core, with PvP tacked on. Bungie was told over and over again where the priorities have been. Oh, sure. I see a lot of players getting pissed with Sony over the live service. And we'll see what happens as they go forward, because a lot of Sony fans give shit to Xbox because of Game Pass. Well, Sony has PlayStation Plus, and it's going to be like a Game Pass model. The only difference is day and date's not there right now. But we'll see what happens in the future. We might have some new trailers for Transformers Reactivate at Gamescom late August, thoughts. I could see that happening. I could see that happening because that's where the studio is located. I could see that happening, Jesse. Maybe we get a beta. Maybe we get a beta. Hopefully, we're supposed to get something this year. Hopefully August. All right. I started a little late. Went a little over, so I made up for the time. We went over a couple stories today. We went over the interview on Kind of Funny Games with Todd Howard. I thought it was a good interview. We read into it a little bit, broke it down a little bit. I'm excited. I am excited for Starfield. We'll see what happens when it comes out. Hopefully, it works really well. We went over a couple news stories about how PlayStation says that they're not going to give PlayStation 6 things to Activision because if Activision gets bought by Microsoft, they don't want to tell their trade secrets. So they're going to hold back stuff there as well. We talked about Blessing, as he said that the live service stuff is going to could be bad. Excuse me, could be bad for Sony in the future, but time will tell. And then we also talked about the price increase of Game Pass by $1 for the standard edition and $2 for the Ultimate Edition over on PC. Hilly says, I would have thought they would have been experimenting more with PvP modes in Destiny for Marathon, but maybe they don't want the optics of Destiny stuff showing up in Marathon. Sure, but they also don't want... Because you would be able to tell stuff, right? They're like, why are they changing stuff all of a sudden? And then they make an announcement, Hilly, that they're making a PvP game. You're like, oh, they were testing it out. You know what I mean? Like that would come off a little bit rough on to the consumer side. They'd be like, oh, see, they were testing it out for this new game. I think they could have done this better. Instead of making Marathon, they could have made it where it was just a standoff game in Destiny, but PvP, right? And make it kind of better. You can't have competing games. I think they could have made this game if they said they had a dedicated Destiny, but they don't want to separate Destiny, man. They don't want to separate Destiny. But at the same time, they want to get those PvP players over there. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Marathon when it comes out. All right, I appreciate it. We'll be back tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern. No GXG tonight. No GXG tonight. We'll play some games tonight. We'll have conversations and whatnot tonight. I appreciate it very much. Make sure you hit that like button down below if you like the coverage that we did today, this morning. If you like that, let me know if you liked it. Because if you did, then I do more of it. That's the way it works. Leave comments down below. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hang out with me. If you'd like to go above and beyond that, hit the subscribe button. It's absolutely free. Helps us out here as well. Most of you guys are already subscribed. And if you'd like to go above and beyond that, you can hit the membership button for as little as $5. Helps us out here because this is what I do. This is what I do. I make my part-time living being a stay-at-home dad and then making content for you guys. So I do appreciate you very much. It's not an obligation, so you can just like, subscribe, or you can become a membership. I do appreciate your time here. I'll see you guys tonight at 8 p.m. Peace.